that are 10, 15, 20 years past transition, and people that are right there in the middle of it. Right, there's just a difference in perspective because life goes on. And I think one of the things that's very difficult on Twitter is you aren't hearing from older people in the trans community 99% of the time. You're hearing from anime avatars. And I don't think it's necessarily productive. Conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of the issue is that a lot of the older trans people are getting shouted down by the trans people a lot of the time, which is, yeah, not good. Yeah, I mean, basically my view on Twitter is this. Twitter is useful for a couple of things. Venting your rage and just like, getting your shots out. Entertainment and low resolution advice. And that's it. And I guess when it comes to if you buy the Harry Potter game, you're not for trans people, I don't know if I think that that's good low resolution advice, because I think it leads to a bad heuristic, which is that some people are going to get through that advice that shouldn't be, and people who are really good trans allies will be missed. I don't know what the better heuristic is. I need to think about it. I'm not exactly like super good with catchy single line phrases. But I think like...
Thanks.
I think that's the only thing we could do on Twitter. It's really about
So,
getting...
Erudite, are you saying it's like an issue, I guess, of like pragmatics? Like you feel like you don't have an ability to convince like, a normie in like an elevator pitch type fashion how like point A to point B, like how buying this video game meaningfully contributes to transphobia. That's why you don't feel like it's worth it to like, stake out a position on it that's very strong.
I think it is a banner and champion that will be used by the in-group itself that leads to bad thinking and bad heuristics. That's what I think it will. It means that people will ask the question, well, it'll be like the Kyle Rittenhouse question all over again. Well, did you support him or did you not? And then if you say yes, you're on one camp, and if you say no, you're on the other camp. And that's the worst purity test ever, because the Kyle Rittenhouse case is so nuanced and complicated. In the case of like the Harry Potter thing, I think that there is a lot of nuance and complication that goes into it. Like, for example, probably the main people buying it are, especially if they are pro-trans, is essentially they're people who feel so connected to the narrative that they don't know how to not to. And so like there's an element of they are putting themselves over the trans movement, but that doesn't mean that they're not a good ally across the board.
I had a conversation with Aristocracy, right? And some of you know that. And because she had made a tweet how this was her vice, right? This is my vice. I grew up with Harry Potter, and so allow me this vice, right? And I thought that was very reasonable, right? Like, I think that someone like her, who Harry Potter had a profound effect on, who had such, and I know you're laughing, but and look, I didn't grow up with that. I'm a little older too, so it wasn't like I read the books and stuff, but it wasn't during my formative years. But I know a lot of people did, and they have a connection to it that has transcended, right? The J.K. Rowling and all that, right? Like,
Since you got your bonus check.
I guess it's hard for me to sit there and tell them like, your connection doesn't matter.
Clear out of that area.
And so you need to take this
pushed us
one
out
to
of
the
the
team. Right?
facility.
I don't know, but again, I'm also not affected by it in the way you are, or other people are, or the trans community is, I should say, right?
It actually reminds me of when I was a student doing like pro-Palestine stuff. There was this really annoying like small group that always used to do this thing where they would make sure to always ask everyone like, do you support the one-state solution? Like, are you wanting to abolish the whole? And it was like, I feel like if an activist was Jewish, they were extra likely to get asked that. And then if you don't, then you're a problem. You're supporting like the ethnic cleansing or whatever the fuck, like, yeah. And I just thought like, okay, you just want to lose then. If that's the way you behave, like, you don't want to win, like, you just want to, because like, how far off in the practical world is that discussion anyway? So yeah, I do feel like people like I think I can understand why. I think because I know if you're like part of like a political struggle, and especially if it affects you personally, it does make sense to develop a lot of like heuristics or like red flag kind of systems, just like a way of like defending yourself, or even just because we don't have that much time in the day. It's like you have to kind of spot like dog whistles or things like that, because there's just, you can't really give that much, like all the charity in the world to every single person. But I think the damaging part of it is, it's like a kind of heuristic that maybe pushes people away that don't necessarily need to be pushed away.
There's a fallacy here. So first of all, I completely agree with you. If you're going up to people and saying, do you support the one state solution, end of discussion, pass, fail, that's a bad tactic, right? That's a bad framing. It's not an effective way to get what you want. I fully agree with you here. This is the point that, respectfully, I think all three of you are making. I would really urge you to hear me here. I think that your arguments are assuming that the trans community picked this fight. And I want you to really hear me here. I don't think the trans community picked this fight. This is a bad fight. It's bad framing. The only choice here for the trans community is either forfeit or say something and stand up. Those are the two options here. And I don't think either one of them is particularly good. So I just really want to be clear. This is J.K. Rowling that started this fight. This is not trans.
There was a movie in the 70s, war game.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you lose, play, right? If someone tries to make you play a losing game, a game where you cannot win, sometimes the best move is just not to play. And I don't, again, I'm not an expert, right? I'm not a social media like guru or someone who has my my tentacles in the ebb and flow of how boycotts work and things like that. But from an intuitive perspective, and I could very well be wrong, it seems like sometimes the best move is just to ignore someone who's trying to bait you into a losing round.
Identified an enemy
Wait,
liberator.
are you against calling for the boycott in general?
I don't know. This is why I'm having this discussion, because I don't know. Because I think that, like, a lot of people that I've seen, one argument that I've seen, I don't know how much I buy into it, but it's worth discussing, is that by talking about this so much, by advocating for the boycott, what you're doing is you're increasing engagement. And engagement, negative or positive, is engagement. And people will be more likely to engage with the product because you have unwittingly promoted it. And so sometimes just not talking about it. Silence is the death of things on Twitter or products, right? Like if no one's talking about it.
I don't know if I agree with that.
If I could suggest, this seems true for trans people in this particular argument, right? Trans people standing up and saying, look, this is who J.K. Rowling is, this is what she's done, this is what we're asking gamers to do. I'm not suggesting that trans people have won this battle. I am suggesting that fighting the fight, sometimes just showing up for a battle, even if you're going to lose, wins you things. Let me give you a very specific example. I ran the United States Congress right here in Massachusetts. I lost. But one of the things me running to the left of Stephen Lynch did is it forced him to take more progressive positions on certain things that he did legislatively. And he had to think about that. He couldn't just take his seat for granted because the election after that, another progressive ran against him. And the election after that, another progressive is going to run against him. By putting up the argument and pushing back on it, you gain concessions necessarily. So I would suggest to you that in this case, even though this has been a very high-cost battle for the trans community, you have streamers that are thinking twice before platforming J.K. Rowling. You have reviewers that when they're writing their copy of this game are going to have to address the controversy. You're going to have to say things in support of the trans community. And I think people are critically thinking about their allyship. I think that all those things can have a positive outcome.
it can. I agree with you. I'm just not sure that it will. And I think that the backlash that we're seeing, as Erudite alluded to, right, about how people feel like because a lot of the banner carriers, sorry, excuse my stumbling here, are just doing it in such a unproductive way that I worry. And I promise you, I'm not trying to concern troll you, right? I really am. This is a concern I have, though. Like, I'm being genuine with you. Is that the banner carriers of this particular battle are doing more harm than good. They are turning more people away than forcing people to confront their allyship or the other possible benefits. Again, I don't have data for this. This is just intuition. This is just my personal observations. So, large grain of salt. But that is my concern. What do the rest of you think? I want to open up this a little bit.
I don't really agree with the idea that like silence is the death or as a better option, especially because
product,
like yeah, I would. I feel like silence when it comes to the J.K. Rowling related stuff is that most people don't really know why J.K. Rowling's transphobic. That's like one of the first things.
Again, not about like, J.K. Rowling, about the game, right?
Yeah, but the game's obviously an opportunity to talk about it, right? So yeah, and of course, like that does spark more discussions about okay, why is so yeah, you have other opportunities, but obviously the game is the thing that everyone's talking about anyway.
The only
so
reason the game is relevant is
piggyback
because of
off
J.K. Rowling. That's the only reason people are talking about it. It's not about the game itself.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and if someone like does the whole thing, oh, what did J.K. Rowling say that's transphobic? You know, people can have things to say, and that's why like silence isn't really a good option there, because yeah, you want to explain why like there's the problem there, and if people want to do that message, I think it's probably boycotts don't really need to be that popular. Even if you look at BDS examples, whether it's like South Africa or Israel, you look at a lot of the polling, especially in earlier days of those campaigns, the polling results I think were sometimes just something like maybe like 25% supported, 10% opposed, and then everyone else just doesn't care. So you don't really need to have like a massive movement for a boycott to have an effect. I think most people, I think it's probably almost 100% the case that she would have sold more copies if it hadn't been for the last 2 years. Yeah. And yeah, it's a good thing to piggyback off of to talk about why J.K. Rowling is like.
I don't know.
Maybe not to be.
I don't know. Like that's the problem. Like we recognize that conservative figures, right? Ben Shapiro and these things are backed up by multi-million-dollar, right? Like interests and things like that. People who are willing to put their money into things like millions of dollars into things that they have decided are going to support their cause. And by putting this up as the enemy, right? Like this game specifically, not J.K. Rowling, but specifically this game, and saying this is the cause, this is what we're going after. I don't see how, again, with all the people talking about buying like 10 games, I don't know how many people are being serious about it, right? But you're laughing, but this is.
Wait, can I ask you maybe like a way to test this? Those people are like, I think instead of virtue signaling, they're vice signaling, right? They're saying like, oh, I'm gonna buy 10 copies now. I don't think that they're gonna do that. Obviously, they're just trying to be like crass online.
Some are.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not even convinced that like people are so reactionary that they will just take the opposing view. Like I remember when Colin Kaepernick took a knee. There were conservative people on Twitter who like performatively burned his jersey that they had for him doing this. And I don't know that actually led to an increase on people who are like supporting BLM just because of the cringy actions of like a few conservative people. I don't know if it moved the needle at all in either direction, to be honest. So in the same way, I feel like trans people talking about this, I don't know that like people not adhering to the boycott or whatever is like, I don't know that it's contributing to more harm by this conversation happening on Twitter.
Well, when we look at things like this, we got to measure like risk versus reward, cost-benefit analysis. As Professor Meat, shout out to Professor Meat. Long may he rest in peace. Pour one out for the homies of dead streamers, not actually dead, but not streaming anymore, right? Cost-benefit analysis, like what benefit do we gain, right, by boycotting the game, versus what costs do we accrue by doing this. And again, this is almost immeasurable because I don't think any of us have any strong data here. So we kind of have to make this kind of an intuitive argument here. And I understand, right? Maybe, it is what it is. But again, my concern is because, and not to make this too personal, but when it comes to messaging
Yeah,
is
you're
bad.
talking about like strategy, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I just
strategy.
feel like the
And messaging.
conservatives.
Let me finish before
Yeah,
I let
yeah,
you go.
sorry.
I'll let you respond. So I know my uncle. I'll use him as an example. Lifelong Democrat, lifelong supporter of minorities and other causes. Unfortunately, because of the way he was treated in online spaces and other spaces, he has not only gone to not vote, but he has started voting for more right-leaning people because he feels it's so like how he was treated was so poorly. He was treated so shittily that he felt that the only recourse he had to protect himself was to support the other side, right? And we can judge him for that. I do, right? I don't think that's the right move at all. I think there's many other things he could have done. But it's something I've observed not only in him, but in a lot of people anecdotally, that they have been moved away from supporting groups that they would otherwise support because they've just, again, as we're talking about, used this really bad heuristic to judge them. Because this isn't the first heuristic that's been used like this by the
Well, then
online.
aren't you admitting that if like people are swayed so easily, people like that, they're so reactionary that you're saying like they believe whatever they want to believe?
Process of years. It wasn't easily like you're. I think you're saying that he just got one mean tweet, right? Like, and then suddenly he was no.
Oh,
This was
no,
a
no, I thought
process
that's
of
what
years.
you were saying.
No,
I
no,
didn't
no,
know
no.
how long the
This
process took.
this happened over and over and over again. It was a repeated behavior over the process of years from 2008 to 2016, basically, that moved him, right? Substantively, and that's a problem. I don't know.
I hear you on that. I genuinely do, and I think this effect is real. I think there seems to be a pattern with high-level figures that get called out on something, and they develop deep feelings of animosity. In fact, I think that's J.K. Rowling's like origin story of hating trans people in the first place. When you get down to it, so I think there's some truth there. I just to just tell a personal story here. I hate talking about Gamergate, but it's relevant here, so I'm going to. In 2014, when a lot of women in the game industry stood up and said, we are going to ask for these companies to make these changes here, it came at an ultra high cost to every single woman that spoke up there. Because let's just admit it, the gaming community, by and large, is not progressive left-wingers, right? Like, it's a lot of dudes, and we were not even having a conversation about these kinds of workplace issues back in 2014. But the outcome of having that losing fight, where every single woman that stood up and asked to be treated better at work, the outcome of that is, look at the game industry today. If you read IGN, GameSpot, or Polygon, the number of women writers there is massively, massively, massively up. We have more studios that are led by women. If you look at the number of games today that have women protagonists in them, it is massively larger today than it was in 2014. So I would posit to you that that is a fight that came at a very high cost and was deeply, deeply damaging to everyone there, led to a lot of good things.
But then, counter, right? Look at Blizzard Activision. Look at the problems that are still like yes, you have more women characters, more women representation, but the overall sexual harassment and just shit treatment, to be frank, of women in the game industry is still like a huge issue, right?
That's correct. We did not solve it, and to be really frank, the institutions there really let us down and didn't follow through on it. I don't regret that fight at all, though. I think it was the right thing to do, because ultimately it's the same situation as this Hogwarts Legacy boycott. It was about me thinking that I was doing the right thing in that moment. That was a character test, and I think this is a character test. Just one more thing I have to say before we go. I have to tell you, like, I don't mind coming on and talking about
SCU compromised.
But just want to point out, this has been
SCU
a
compromised.
format that has been, like, I feel like I'm the only person here advocating for this, even remotely. And I also think this has been the general conversation that I've seen on YouTube and Twitch. The live streamers I actually enjoy and respect have held this exact same thing. And I think it's part of this problem of, frankly, the people that should be having this conversation don't have large platforms on Twitch, and I think that's a real problem.
I invited Keffels, I invited a few other people who would, no one was willing to come on, right?
Wow.
Like, no one was willing to, because I talked earlier, right, about people telling me to shut up about transitions. That's it, gang, that's it. Like, they won't come on my platform because I don't fit the right identity markers. And I want my audience, because this is a topic that I want to talk about, right? I am genuinely conflicted on this. But no, come on, right? Like, and so, thank you. I just want to say, because we are winding down, it is 8 o'clock. I know some people have to go. I want to say genuinely thank you, and I hope that you feel we've given you an honest and fair hearing, right? I hope that you feel that you have your voice heard today.
I think I would say this is probably the first productive conversation I've ever seen on this issue.
Don't let up.
So, I
Stick with
think
me,
that's an
kiddos.
achievement.
Stick with me, kiddos. Gang, okay, we are winding down. I want to give all these wonderful individuals a last, shout out. They can tell you where they are, things like that. But before I do, forgive me for being a little capitalist. Gang, give me money, right? Donate, sub to the channel. I gotta eat, gang. I gotta get paid. You want the only productive conversation to go underawarded by subs and donuts? With that said, enough chilling. We'll go in reverse order. Raiderade. Last thoughts and something.
My last thoughts is that I think this is an issue that I've kind of felt the most centricity on, just because I'm a little bit black-pilled on consumer boycotts to begin with, for the reasons I mentioned earlier about how skeptical I am about an individual consumer's purchasing power really being able to meaningfully affect the market trend. I've been a vegan since I was 16. The reason why I don't consume animal products or purchase them has, I think a lot of people think it's more of a strategic choice that I'm trying to affect, like, again, like market trends and stuff like that. But like outside of any economic paradigm, like I would not consume animal products. So I never even approach vegan activism from that angle. So let alone where I know, or like, that's kind of why I'm undecided about it from this perspective. It fits, I guess, more consistently and broadly into my skepticism about all of that altogether, which is why I seem like a fence sitter. Yeah, I had a great time talking about this. I agree with Brianna that this is, to me, the first time that this conversation hasn't just evolved into a fight. Really, I thought I enjoyed everybody's perspective, and yeah, I'm gonna drop my link tree in chat. I'm at Straightaway on basically anything, and if you want to debate with me, message me on Discord.
I can heal you.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Straightaway. We love you. You're great. You're I know I take you on the ringer from the Silly to the Serious.
Spotted a hostile fighter.
I appreciate you being here.
Hostile
Check her out.
in
She
the
posted
area.
it in the chat. Linktree/Straightaway. Next up, we have Not So Erudite, please.
We need to use the tunnels.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Spotted enemy transport.
Yeah, I definitely
Enemy
wanna be
transport
careful.
vehicle in the area.
This isn't the time to finger wag at trans people, because you guys weren't starting the fight. You're right. J.K. Rowling poked the bear first. The issue is, which is why I said, I think if you want to boycott, I think that is probably a good thing. I have no problem with that. I don't want to pretend like I'm boycotting, because I would never purchase the game anyway. So it's kind of a non-moral question for me. It's easy for me to fall on the side of
Hostile max identified.
probably mostly the one that I would agree with. I mostly just really want to be careful about the formative purity testing that occurs. But I don't agree on but it's occurring a lot. Which is to say, if you do engage in this thing, you must be immoral, and it must be all of the I just don't think it's that simple. I think there's a lot of nuance in this conversation about like how to actually effectively like dismantle like transphobic figureheads. And so, yeah, I just thank everyone for participating in the conversation.
Always, thank you. Always, you always bring, a very intellectual position to these conversations. Not Erudite. You're wonderful. Check her out, gang. I shout her out in chat. Please give her a follow. She's great. Next up, first time actual guest on my show, but he did wonderfully. Loaderbox, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Wick. I don't know. I don't really need to argue with like someone who's not here, who's doing the purity testing thing. So yeah, I'll just said all I need to.
It's deployed,
Yeah,
so I don't know why.
I enjoyed it. Nice meeting you, Brianna. I've met you other guys before, so fuck off.
Loaderbox is great.
If I'd
I
known
shouted
that,
him
I
out.
would've,
Click on his
played it
Twitch link,
elsewhere.
give him a follow. He's great too. And finally, Brianna, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Like I said, I think it really comes back to that Marcy Bowers quote. I think that when we're not willing to have discussions about these things that are measured and thoughtful, I don't think it looks like solidarity. I think it looks like we have something to hide. And I just think that I do believe strongly that if you want to stand with the trans community, the best thing to do is just to sit this game out. There's a whole nother discussion to be had about how Harry Potter just isn't that good, y'all. I didn't read it until, God, I think I was like,
Yeah,
I
we
think
can't
I was like
have a
30,
artificial
31,
Kernighan.
and I read the first book, and I missed it, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, I was just astonished by how poorly it was written, like not very deep themes, even for a children's book, like standard. I mean, The Hunger Games, this is a book for young adults. Like, there's some real stuff there. It's talking about like war and propaganda and becoming symbols for things bigger than you, and love. I mean, Harry Potter, in my view, is just not even remotely that. And maybe it's me that I'm missing something. You had to be the right age to really enjoy this novel. But, you know, for me, it's like if the trans community is saying, we would prefer you not to buy this game, it's a very easy decision. And I hope you will too. Last thing, you know, please just be kind to trans people. It's been a very difficult political environment in the last few years. And the legislation coming out today is truly scary. So no matter what you do with Hogwarts, please get out there, vote, make your voice heard, canvass, run for office, donate money, do whatever you can, because tweeting is not happening.
Sailor, enemy heavy nearby.
Meeting.
Let me heal
I
you.
think that's a one for the record books, gang. One for the quote books, for the quote board.
Hostile light assault trooper spotted.
Not, I repeat, not activist. So stop pretending it is. I will say adieu to all you lovely individuals. I'm going to do an open kind of thing after this. You're free to stay if you want, but you have to go, that's fine. Members of my community who are in chat who've been like, I want to talk about this, let me on. Now's your chance, let me link to Discord. But for the rest of you, if you have to go, adieu. Bid thee a fond farewell. And then I do want to, Brianna, before you leave, I do want to have that Twitter discussion that you talked about.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I will set that up.
We're friends on Discord.
We will,
I'm
I
gonna
will.
hang around for the comments. We'll do
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, fair enough. Excellent.
100%.
Gang, I want to be clear about this. Usually I'm pretty laissez-faire in my moderation. Not today. Don't be a dick. You can disagree. But if you're in any way, right, transphobic, you're gone today, okay? Fair enough. Cool? Cool. Okay, just letting you know. Okay, let's see. Are you all sticking around?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fair
I'll stay
enough.
around.
I got like 10 minutes.
It really is just millennials who like Harry Potter, isn't it?
Well, look,
Sorry,
I
no.
like, I thought it was fine. Look, but I didn't look at it too deep. I just wanted to be a wizard, okay? Like, I didn't read it about doing my formative years, but like, I wanted to put on a wizard hat and cast wizard spells. It wasn't that deep.
I don't like
Those
the
were, like,
writing.
The only reasons that I read when I was
Fair
like 11 years old. But you
Actually,
know,
I
had
guess
a
chat
show.
wants to go, so have a good night.
Okay,
Guys, have
see you
a good
later,
night.
Erudite.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, hold on, guys.
Battle Royale is a better Hunger Games.
Yep, hold on. I've only got one camera system, so this is a little bit rough. Let's see if I can get it back on. Deactivate, activate. Let's go. There I am. Hello, everyone. Okay. Any thoughts about that? Any thoughts or questions? Up next, I have like a drunken debates. I don't know what it's gonna be on. I don't know the topics. They don't release them until the debate. The whole reason I'm only streaming to YouTube, canceled, so that's fun. It is what it is. I'm going to deafen. Okay. Call Destiny? Is he crying? Is he crying again? Do you want me to see? I'll message him and see if he got banned for reals. Ugh. Oh gosh, what?
Spotted an enemy heavy.
Brittany?
Enemy heavy spotted.
Yes, I am traveling. I didn't get kicked off Twitch. No, there's a guy in this next panel thing that was booted, that was banned off of Twitch. So I don't stream to Twitch when there's those individuals there, because I can get banned for him for basically aiding and vandalism. But this person's not coming, so it's all for nothing.
Spotted a hostile infiltrator.
That's okay. No, I'm good. I'm not banned. The person who was going to be John Burke is banned, and he was going to be on the panel. It's his show. He's apparently not going to be there. Destiny, I think, got struck, right? I'm ready for my brother to play video games with me. Oh. What game, huh?
Enemy engineer spotted.
Enemy
You're like, do you play FPS with your brothers? I could see that. Who, this individual? This is me. This is bad lighting. And my hair is a little bit, you know. I don't know, is Destiny banned though, or is he just struck? Like he's just temporarily struck. Thank you, Busy, for the $1. Appreciate it. And the $10, there's a $10 dono as well during that whole man, I just don't care about the Harry Potter game, is what I realized. I agreed to go on it just because Wick was looking for somebody who was like, friends with Brianna and wanting to make sure that it was like a really chill conversation. But I just realized, like, while I was talking about it, I was like, I don't care. Like, I've never cared about Harry Potter, ever. I've always thought J.K. Rowling was kind of a piece of shit, but my understanding is that she's been, like, a piece of shit for a long time. Like, wasn't there, like, some big, like, scandal about some
Harry Dresden better
that she did? Who's Harry Dresden? Didn't she do some naughty thing, while she was, like, writing her... I'm just talking on my butt, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I just heard that she did a bad thing. She like ripped her idea off of somebody. I'm just making up shit. I'm also struggling because the more I look into J.K. Rowling, there's some stuff that so like the active targeting of trans people that she does is super weird and like cringe. Like it's just really
Enemy soldier down.
Hold on, let's get the door and go up.
Hostile liberator spotted.
Enemy engineer spotted.
Reloading, cover me.
Thanks. To be honest, it felt like you all let Brianna get away with bad arguments. She was doing a woke virtue signaling part hard. I don't think she was. The thing is, like, she was kind of in between. She was exceptionally good faith, and it was a dog pile. I think, like, the idea. Here's the thing, okay, Vikram, you come from like the manosphere, and you come from like a very specific niche of the manosphere, where your guys' debate skills are young. And so this idea of just like every time you have a conversation with somebody, you should just like jump down their throat at every wrong argument is a really bad debate strategy. Like the reality is like Brianna was being exceptionally good faith. It was a very, very personal topic as well. And so if all three of us were just jumping down her throat constantly for every bad argument, we would have just looked like assholes. she would have gotten understandably more defensive, and the whole conversation just would have blown up. There would have been no productivity. There would have been nothing good that came out of that conversation. And I'm friends with Brianna. I like Brianna. Brianna, for all of her vices, what you might disagree with, she is a much more nuanced actor within, like, particularly the further left side. She's willing to engage, which is more than anything. And here's the pro key. Do not punish people for directionally the correct action, right? Don't do it. If all you want is for leftists to stop isolating and to start just talking about their core of ideas, which is the main thing I want, I am not going to shit down her throat the moment she comes and does that. I'm not going to do it, because by her coming on our platform and talk about these ideas at all, she's risking all of her own crowd to just be nasty. So she's being excessively and needlessly brave. So I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. I also think that there was a lot of good arguments that she was making in there, right? I think that there is... The issue is, like, I'm more progressive than most of you in the manosphere as well. Like, I don't think all of her arguments were bad. Especially because if I steel-manned what she was saying, I agreed with a lot of the, like, claims she was making, I guess. What does this camera look like? Hold on. It's just not loading at all. We're gonna have a problem. Maybe I shouldn't have activated my camera here.
Visual on hostile light assault trooper.
That was Brianna. I'm back to the game. If Chickara wasn't transphobic, we would all love Harry Potter, I'm thinking now. Okay, bye! I'm waiting for the left on manager, but I understand. Fair, yeah. I know you are. Trans people don't really have they don't have a good spokesman. They have an entire group of people that, whether you think, regardless of think, there's a lot of mental illness going on. Because there's high levels of trauma, there's high levels of distress, there's high levels of anxiety and depression and all sorts of things. So you have an entire group that is, like, operating in many ways out of mental illness, and you have a bunch of antisocial fucks taking advantage of this group for their own wallet, like Keffels, right? You have actual bad actors who are taking advantage of an actual vulnerable group to, like, champion and push it in a direction that it doesn't need to go, right? So, like, I think you have to, I at least tend to pull my punches pretty hard with the trans community, because I think that there's a lot of failings of everyone. The facility's lost. Fall back and regroup. I don't know why my camera's not working. It's just, like, not, my computer camera doesn't work at all. Like, why is this not working? Damn it. Excuse me, I think you're forgetting Caitlyn Jenner. Okay. Probably, unironically, probably the best leader the trans community has right now is Philosophy Tube and ContraPoints, right? Which, they're great, right? They have lots of they're brilliant video essayists, but that's a far cry from, like imagine your entire group of population is best advocated for by YouTubers. Like, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. I don't think the biggest issue with the boycott is Rowling's proximity to the game. Even if you don't agree with the boycott, if Rowling was closer to the game, I don't think there would be much backlash. Oh, are you saying that because your issue with the boycott is that Rowling is far away from, like, there's so many degrees of separation? Judge or Absurdist route? That's definitely a really bad route for most of the trans community. Isn't ContraPoints gone? I don't think so. Is ContraPoints gone? This camera's just not working at all. Hold on, I'm gonna just check my devices. Device manager, okay. working properly. So why isn't it? Beside it being her IP, what was her licensing agreement? I don't know. So there's some people who are saying, so I don't have a prime source for this. There's a bunch of people saying that she will still get royalties beyond just like the IP. I don't know if that's true though. And here's the issue. If it turns out that she just gets her straight cut regardless of how the game does, then there's literally no reason to boycott it at all. It's useless. It's just like empty cancel culture at that point. But there's a lot of people saying that she does get royalties because my understanding is that historically when other like branches of Harry Potter's been made, she's gotten paid not just like the standard cut, but she's also asked for like royalties of like if it's successful she gets more and stuff like that. So I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what specifically she's asking for with the intellectual like property rates and stuff. And I can't find Contra hasn't made a video in a few years. Really? I thought it was more recent.
I'll focus
7 months ago.
Kamari,
the last one.
so
Enemy air transport
7
spotted.
months ago. Okay, she has that. Thank you, nihilists. She will get a small percentage of royalties. Okay, yeah. So at that point, then the boycott has like some effect. The issue is that like it's not really getting at what I think. Like I understand it. Like I believe this whole pissing match was started because JK came up saying that anyone who buys it supports you basically. So it's like, why are you poking the bear?
Brianna did great for me in a tough position, and I thought she mostly did okay. It had to have been hard, even if I disagree.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like 3v1. And Vosh's career? ContraPoints did not end Vosh's career. Vosh is doing just fine. If anything, Vosh was Vosh himself was like damaging his career by being like on his like fortress thing. Are any others positing the argument Pixie is making that ultimately it's an ego boost for her and she wants to cut down her ego by boycotting the game? It's just so ineffective. Like it's so empty at that point. And like in a political world where the division is at like its most, when everyone is constantly just purity testing each other to see what group you're a part of, when both like the two sides cannot communicate hardly at all, and I would say the like reactive right vitriol towards trans ideology, which to some extent their vitriol is understandable, is at like an all-time high. I feel like now is the time that if you care about like trans stuff, you should be most careful with your advocacy. You should be like most mindful to ensure that like things get done on that and like actually like building more than anything like compassion for like people who don't really understand trans identity towards trans people. And I just feel like to be like, I just want to cut down her ego is like there's so many more important things out there. So it's like sure, you can. But if that's what you're doing, if your only reason for doing it is you want to cut down her ego, then you're just being petty, which is fine. It's amoral. But I don't think you're a good person for that. It's completely because you're not going to. When puberty blockers were used as an example of progress. Damn, I guess my sense of time is way. I mean, 7 months is close to a year. We weren't too off. The brain, no work on the brains. Okay, I'm getting close to it. I cannot get my fucking camera to work. Okay, I'm gonna try deleting my camera from this and see. I'm gonna do that. Okay, hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, let's see if this works. Ah! We did it! We did it! Okay, hold on.
ID'd an enemy prowler.
Oh, I gotta move this out. Like this, and like this, and like...
All forces at ground. inbound. Orbital strike targeted near your position. All ground sections. We have orbital strike inbound near your location. Stay clear.
Aha! Success! When am I going to start playing Factorio? Never! Never! Because I don't have a strong case of the autism, okay? I'm never going to do it. It's never going to happen. Look, all respect to you people who can just like, you incredible thinkers.
Stay alert.
Who can just
Enemy
like
heavy
play
nearby. Visual on
factory
hostile light
efficiency
assault
games.
troopers.
That ain't me, okay? That ain't me. Destiny got
Spotted an
banned. What is he,
enemy
like,
heavy.
perma-banned? I feel the same way. That's why I thought it argued
Spotted a
so. I don't
hostile
know what
infiltrator.
if any other word adopting the same thing. Probably not. Yeah, Chud Logic is great. This is called the Drunken Debate. I should probably go get a drink for realsies, so maybe I'll undeafen.
Just saw an enemy man.
The severity of it.
But
They just
Destiny
broke
had
a new
very-
one. Okay.
I was going to say Destiny. Obviously, account points in my chat at the moment. Obviously, Destiny and account points went
is
to
Eric?
kind of had a bit of a disagreement, shall we say, over it. I don't know if you saw that at all, Rob, but that was quite
Nah.
interesting.
Is Destiny's in your chat?
No, not
Is that what you
Destiny.
said?
No. Destiny.
Oh.
That's counterpoints is.
Oh, Counterpoints. I like Destiny too. Counterpoints is cool. Destiny don't want to debate me anymore after the Biden debate debacle. He didn't do so hot. So.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, he's just
you
terrified.
destroyed him.
You know it. You know it. He's had the offer. No, I think Destiny's more involved. Here's the thing, right? Like, if I'm trying to be humble, I think that if you're a bigger streamer, you probably don't want to debate someone who's basically a nobody if you think that it'll require like a lot of energy on your part, and if you have a bunch of drama shit. Like, I'm not really so much fun in a lot of the drama stuff because I don't know. I'm not terminally connected to people, so I don't have much to say on it. That's how I hear every once in a while, like, oh, don't have those two people on a panel. They don't like each other. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, what the hell do I know? What's up, Turk? Thank you so much for being here.
Hey.
Hey, what's up?
But, we'll get her started soon. Who we missing? Prime.
Enemy liberator in the area.
Lefty. Who would have thought?
Yeah, Chud.
I mean,
no
well,
longer a
John Burke
lefty.
wasn't able to make it. I don't know how severe the thing was. I don't want to speak too much on it, but hopefully
That's true.
you're okay.
Yeah, who am I to say the lefty's late when the righty didn't show up? So
Exactly.
that's
But then if someone turned around and said, one of his family members had a serious accident, I'd feel terrible. So obviously,
it's not that. It's not that, but it is of a serious nature. But I'm not going to disclose. But
No, sure.
It's definitely a serious issue. But I think you'll be fine. I don't think that like anyone's life's in jeopardy. It's gonna be all right. We can have fun and not worry about it. What's up, Prime? Airtight, are you cleaning like a chair or something? Is that what?
No, I spilt water, and I'm like sitting on the ground. I'm just at like a vacation house right now.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
And I spilt water on the carpet right below.
Prowler spot. Watch your six. Infiltrator in the area.
My butt keeps getting wet.
So just to let people know before we get started, I'll do a quick sound check. Nothing big. It's going to be pretty informal. I'll go over the rules real quick. It's nothing much. The topics no one knows, not even Aftershock. You can stream wherever you want. As far as I know, no one here is banned on Twitch. John is, but he's not here. So if you all want to stream to wherever, I see no problem with it. If someone is banned on Twitch, can you speak up just so we don't get everyone else in trouble with their stupid terms of service? All right, we're good then. So can I just do a quick sound check? Chud?
Yes, hello.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good to me. CTV? Oh boy.
He's
One
deaf.
second, let me... Oh, you're deaf in CTV. All right, let's just move around. Erudite, you sounded good. Prime?
How familiar with the garbage?
Yeah. Look at this, already coming in with the hot takes. Rachel?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sounds good. And Turk?
We all know Prime has the best dumbest takes.
I thought it was
this
number one.
The number one.
As a
dumbest takes,
38-year-old dad, I was very impressed that John Burke was replaced by the Turk. I was like, look at that, right? Like little rhyming humor there, right? Hey, Chud, I saw you reviewed my debate I had with my cousin Craig there one time. How'd that go?
That was a work of art. I mean, it was hilarious. I mean, was that the result of finding it difficult to find people to debate? Is that what was going on?
So there's two things. The one I won't mention.
Jesus.
Let's just say I get very trans positive in May. I don't know if you knew it's Pride Month. Did you know that? Pride Month? Yeah, you never hear about it, but apparently it's Pride Month.
Chad knows all about
You
it.
never hear about it. It's so strange. You know, I had someone that had been begging me to debate me. It was a high school student, and they seemed very gung-ho, and I was like, sure. And 3 minutes before the debate, they're like, yeah, I can't do this. And so I was like, well, shit. So I was a little miffed. So I was like, well, I'll just debate my cousin Craig. And I thought it went pretty well, for 20 minutes. But that was it. So if you all don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and start it. I'll just do a brief introduction, and then I'll leave you all introduce yourself and your channel. And then, like I said, no one knows the topics. I honestly wrote down topics, but I think I had a last-minute change. So it's really, you take it the direction you want. The only thing I ask is I don't want to be involved in the debate any more than just trying to get clarification or making sure people that aren't talking a lot are talking. So if the topic is we're going to discuss how the Greco-Roman calendar is racist, and you all start having an impassioned argument about Coke versus Pepsi, I don't give a shit. Keep it rolling. I don't care. So wherever it goes, it goes. It's your show. So
I was looking to fight you. Actually, that's a disappointment.
Moderator Rob's completely different. I'm so sorry. So, all right, I'm gonna start it up here. Just give me 1 sec. And like I said, you guys
Is
stream it
cousin
wherever
Craig?
you want. And
Is cousin Craig gonna join us too? At some point?
he might.
Chud, it's your moment. I gotta tell you a secret. Chud DMs me all the time and tells me about how cute your cousin is, so I know he's. I'll leak.
It's the scarf, By the way, I know I have striking good looks. I'm a married man, so no need to hit on me. It's fine. I had to say it the other week. Did you remember that line in Pulp Fiction where Samuel L. Jackson says, "Why'd you try to fuck him like a bitch? The only person Mr. Wallace likes to be fucked by is Mrs. Wallace." Very good. By the way, I tried to get Sam Jackson a beer tonight, but he's a little busy. So.
The whole center row has doggos. I have my doggy right here by me. Everybody's got their dog.
I just got it. The only thing I'm waiting for, we're all muted. I'm just waiting, making sure my Rumble channel works. Because again, I'm not supposed to be streaming this. It's supposed to be streamed to John Burke's channel. But because of the nature of the emergency, he didn't give me a stream feed, so that's what I'm doing. Rachel, are you gonna do like Andrew and yell super chats out the whole time?
No. No.
At least he leans into the tactics. I think there's admirability.
Well, there's a big debate going on at the Crucible right now, so.
That's what I heard.
Ceasefire, I'm a friendly.
So you're competing against him. You'll sound better than anyone.
I don't know. Chase Haggard is on tonight. He's really good.
Yeah, I know. All right, we'll get started here. Oh yeah, I should have set this up. Sorry, audience. There we are. Welcome everyone to Drunken Debates. I'm your host, Rob Noir. My co-host, John Burke, could not be here this evening, but it is still John Burke and Rob Noir's Drunken Debates. We're happy for everyone to be here and all our guests to be here. Now, if you're new to the channel, what it is a panel show. You've seen panel debate shows. Again, it's a little different because no one knows the topic except me, the host, beforehand. So we'll try to get to 2 to 3 topics tonight, but I think we got an excellent panel lined up. You're supposed to be drinking a little alcohol or any substance that you want. That could be anything from vitamin water to me, myself, I'm drinking a little bit of Cavassier and water. Listening to little Busta Rhymes today. Yeah, what can I say? I didn't have Hennessy. By the way, I don't know if white guys are allowed to drink Hennessy. So, but yeah, we got a good panel lined up tonight. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. We'll get right to it. I'll do a brief introduction for everyone, and we'll just jump into our first topic. Up on the top left, someone who I've interacted with several times before. Always enjoyed my time. The incredible and first time seeing him in person, actually, Chud Logic. Thank you so much for being here, Chud.
Hello there. Good to be here. Pleased to be here.
Excellent, excellent. And next, returning friend who I haven't interacted with for a very long time, but people that have followed me for a long time have seen me on panels with him dozens of times. Thank you so much for making your return this evening. Critically thinking veteran, thanks for being here. Muted. He'll fix it. Skip. We're off to a blazing start here. Next up on the top right, my first time interacting with her, but I've seen her on panels and on shows with people that I know. I'm very interested to hear what she has to say tonight, smacking around these stupid righties all night. So thank you so much for being here for the first time. Erudite, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. It's nice to meet you, Rob. I haven't met you before. So.
Great to meet you. Next, on the far left, one of the first people I ever interacted with on a panel. He's had panel show going back a long time. Had some many great debates with and against. Believe it or not, me and Prime have been on the same side of debates once or twice. So always a pleasure to have him here. Thank you so much, Prime Case, for being here tonight.
Far left is exactly the position I should be on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would move you off the monitor, but I don't have the technological chops to do that. So next, one of my favorite people to listen to. I've done several interviews with her. She's been on Tucker Carlson's show. Incredible author, incredible debater, and she has to put up with Andrew Wilson Now, Andrew, a good friend of mine that runs the Crucible, does fantastic as a debater and helping out with that. And Comfy, thank you so much for being here, Rachel Wilson.
Well, that was a rousing introduction, Rob. I don't know if I've ever gotten such a wonderful introduction, but thank you so much. It's my first time on Drunken Debates. I'm super happy to be here. I have my bourbon with Dr. Pepper Cream Soda Zero, the superior diet beverage, so I'm ready.
Rob, can you hear me?
On. Yeah. What's up, Aftershock?
Your stream cannot hear you.
My stream?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Fix that.
There we go. They couldn't hear everyone else? No. All right,
okay.
Let me rehash. Let me know if you can hear them now. Let me rehash for everyone. A bunch of interesting people introduced themselves. Lastly, we're going to go to last minute replacement, the Turk. He came in. Not only is the Turk doing me a solid by coming here last minute because John couldn't make it tonight, but he's also been helping me out with stupid computer problems I have because I'm a boomer. So thank you so much for being here, Turk.
Yeah, we should have done a mic check for you before you hit the go live button.
My joke before didn't make sense. It honestly didn't hear you. It didn't make sense. Okay.
I gotta
The audience heard you. That's all that matters, right?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm stupid. CTV, it didn't matter that your mic wasn't working because no one's was. So, but no, we just did introductions. We'll do outros too, so you'll get to meet everyone again. And it'll be fun if you don't know their names. You could just be like that stupid guy on the far left there, and things like that. You know, you can make your own names up for everyone. So, all right, we're gonna go. We're gonna jump right in. Do we have to ask pronouns before I say something like that? But no, we'll just jump in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 to 3 topics. There'll be minute introductions. After everyone gets an introduction, their opening statements, we could go in. If you don't know anything about the topic, you could say pass. None of these topics have been given out beforehand, so don't feel bad if you don't know about them. First topic was something that I came up with like 3 minutes before we came on. There was video body cam footage that was just released of a gentleman named Tyree Nichols, who was a black gentleman that was that died in an interaction with the police. The video was very shaky and it was difficult to watch all of it, but it does show the dying moments of this guy. If you haven't seen the video, that's okay. But what's being reported is there are several cities that are gearing up for potential riots tonight. The question is, do you think we need to do more as a society when it comes to interactions with police and people in the African American community? And do you also think that we need to do more in society when it comes to expectations that if interactions go wrong between police and members of the African American community, that there will predictably be riots? We'll start in one order and then we'll go in the reverse order in the next topic. So let's start at the top left with Chud Logic. You have a minute. Go ahead.
Sure. I think that one of the biggest tragedies of the George Floyd's murder is that nothing really meaningful seems to have been done. I think there's been some small steps forward, but this most recent event shows there are still issues that exist. Whilst I would accept that they're certainly overstated, and overstating those issues can lead to violence, there probably is some more work that needs to be done. What that looks like, I don't know. I've not watched the video. Apparently it's pretty bad. And I think protesting is fine. I think while sometimes riots are understandable in some contexts, they're certainly not justifiable, and torching businesses and torching people's belongings and whatnot isn't the correct response to deal with this. So that's my basic take on it.
Okay, excellent. I just want to say for clarification, at least when I'm hosting, it's okay to show videos of something like this if it's part of the topic. I don't want to show a video of someone dying, so that's not going to happen. So no one has to worry if they're streaming that it'll be against terms of service. And I honestly haven't watched the whole video myself, but CTV, next to you.
Well, I think that that politicians that are actively encouraging people to take to the streets and go get in people's faces, as like examples would be Maxine Waters, right? Politicians that are doing that need to be fined immediately by the government itself for this activity, because that ultimately ends up leading to all these other people becoming encouraged to go do the very thing that all of us can agree that they shouldn't be doing, which is destroying property,
Did he drop out?
Oh, we started.
Your mic.
Oh,
go
no.
ahead, sorry.
Oh no! See, there's pause for dramatic effect. Apparently, y'all forgot that I do that, right? now, so from there, once you start rooting out the problem with the politicians, then you can start going on to media personalities, but that's going to be more of a culture thing, right? People in government definitely should be being fined because they are in the position of authority, and if they're encouraging people to go do things that are against the law, well, that's just basic common sense.
Okay. All right, thanks. Sorry for interrupting you there. Next, let's go to Erudite.
Sure. Do we need to do more with the interactions of the police? I would say just robustly yes. I think American policing systems are very strange. This is going to be coming from a Canadian, so obviously I'm going to have the foreigner take. There's a lot of inconsistencies across different police departments, and I think that leads to this issue where the solution can't be one size fits all, but you also have a federal problem of, there's bias, there's heuristics of people assuming that if they're black, they're more violent, criminal, black men getting more time. I mean, there's this obvious systemic bias against black people within the judicial system, and I think police are failing as well. It's just the way forward isn't clear because your guys' precincts differ across, even within their own state, precincts are so different in how they train and work the police. So I'll give that.
Theories.
Okay. All right. Let's go over to Prime. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that we're even discussing it seems like the answer simply is yes. More needs to be done. I don't know who is necessarily encouraging riots. I don't know if that's a thing, especially within our political class. I haven't heard it, but maybe I missed it. But we should understand MLK's famous quote, "A riot is the language of the unheard." When people riot, generally, in a political context, it's because they feel they have no other choice. That's not to say that every individual who is a rioter is thinking in that way. It's I need to make this message, and so I'm gonna burn down the store. But that is the general outcome when people feel that they just can't work within the political mechanisms. They'll start a riot. So let's do something about it.
Okay, thanks. Next, let's go to Rachel.
So I'm gonna probably be the only person who has this perspective, but I don't think that things like civil unrest and riots are grassroots movements. I don't think it's something that organically happens. You can go back to Martin Luther King, you can go back to suffrage, you can go back to the Civil War, the American Revolution, all the way back to the French Revolution. These sort of things are usually perturbed on purpose by certain entities with political interests, and I think that's what's been happening here. It's not to say that police don't do things they shouldn't, or that maybe people commit crimes that they shouldn't. Those things happen. However, when you see entire cities burning down and police being told to stand down, and you know that Antifa or Black Lives Matter, which are both entities that we know are funded and have federal infiltration within them, we have agent provocateurs within them trying to provoke this on purpose to stoke social unrest. So I don't think it's so much a question of Prime or police as it is who is instigating the violence.
This facility now belongs
Last
to
but
the
not
entity.
least, let's go down to the Turk.
Yeah, so I didn't listen to many of y'all's intros because I wanted to watch the body cam footage. Basically, this person was resisting arrest for a pretty good 5-minute chunk of time. I think what it boils down to is, in order to receive respect from police officers, you need to be showing respect to police officers. And the fact that people in these types of situations are not complying, they're not, even if they're in the right and they're not doing what's being asked of the police, and they're actively fighting and being physically confronted with police officers, that's not the way society's supposed to work. That's just not good. And I gotta say, when it comes to the riots, we hadn't even seen the body cam footage, and like yesterday and this morning, people were like, yeah, people are already like getting geared up, ready to go. So it's like, it's going to happen, regardless of how bad the body cam footage is, because it is bad. I don't agree with what the cops did, but it does come down to personal responsibility. And if someone says stop to be detained, you need to stop to be detained. And I see Prime is just laughing his face off. That's just the way police work, dude.
Let's go over to Prime. It's open discussion, so we'll start with him and then just go ahead.
Thank you so much. Oh no. Oh god, I forgot how dumb some conservatives can be. Oh wow. Like, this is literally the comply or die take, right?
Give your hands, you shouldn't give your hands.
The individual should have personal responsibility, but the cops want not to murder, right? Hey,
let's leave Prime talk. Leave Prime talk. Everyone will get a chance. Go ahead, Prime. Sorry.
No problem. Hey, don't beat a person to death. That apparently doesn't factor in. Like you said, you don't agree with their decision to do the murder. Yeah, sure, but he didn't immediately comply like criminals tend to do. That doesn't mean they get executed. But I'm sure we'll go down this. I'm sure I'll have to walk down this rabbit hole later. All right,
but police
now. I just wanted to ask Rachel a question. Hello, Rachel. Nice to meet you.
Or the fact that she said
what the fuck is this mic?
Okay.
Whoa. Real quick, everyone, please. CTV, I think there's something wrong with your mic. Prime, go ahead and ask your question to Rachel, and then we'll go around the horn. Go ahead.
Sure. Rachel, what is the mechanism that is starting these riots? The recent riots in recent history. So I guess around Black Lives Matter. How exactly does that work in your opinion?
So we know that these entities are funded and often supported by federal government 3-letter organizations, whether it's the NSA, CIA, FBI. And listen, I might be a little bit more on your side here than you think, because what happened to Martin Luther King was not just an organic thing either. The FBI was completely culpable in that, right? So what they do is, when they have an agenda and they want to stoke some civil unrest so that they can do whatever, shenanigans they want to do, they will have agent provocateurs, either FBI, CIA agents, maybe NSA now, who will infiltrate these groups, and they will stoke unrest. We saw this in 2020, we saw it in 2021 in January. I don't want to say anything that's going to get anyone in trouble, but that's generally what they do. Is you'll see some 1 or 2 or 3 people within these organizations saying, hey, we need to go burn stuff down, right? And whip everybody up, whip up a mob within this group that's already upset about something, and then intentionally get them to do something crazy that's going to provoke an even bigger media and police response, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question? Or
very quickly, I'll say, agent provocateurs, definitely a thing. In fact, I've been a part of protests. I've seen it, right? We've seen video evidence, and that's, that protest or that police station was burned down, before then there was a guy who started that. Right. I don't have evidence that the CIA necessarily is doing it, but if you do, I'd love to hear it. But anyway, I'm done.
Let's go down to the Turk and give him a chance to respond, and then we'll go up to Chud.
Yeah, so Prime, you're completely misrepresenting what I'm saying here. The part about complying is independent of the current situation where the cops went completely out of line and are I believe they're being prosecuted, right? Yeah, so that is the right thing to do in this particular case. Granted, I don't know what the precursor of it was. I haven't seen why the person was stopped. The only camera footage I've seen is the cops that are responding to the situation of the perpetrator not complying to direct commands from the detaining officer, and the perpetrator continues to not comply with verbal commands, does not comply with pepper spray, does not comply with all these other things. So it's like at that point, the perpetrator is not doing what they need to be doing in that situation.
Wait, but didn't the actual bureau, of these police officers, decide that they had done? They said that the officers violated multiple department policies, including excessive use of force, duty to intervene, and duty to render aid. And so the department that hired these police officers basically came out and said, yeah, they act beyond the pale.
And I'm not disagreeing with that.
Okay.
And I'm
I just want to make sure
that,
we've got
yes,
all that out there.
Yeah.
But I think that the problem is you're talking about complying. But that's totally irrelevant to the matter at hand.
No,
yes,
it's
we
not.
can talk.
It's the precursor to
it absolutely is. There's a video of them having the fella there, and they're fucking punching him around the chops. Complete,
yes, and the
absurd
initial instance was the perpetrator not complying. They
Right,
violated
okay,
a law. I
that
don't
was
know
the
what it
first
was,
instance.
but they're
He
not,
didn't
he's not
comply,
complying to
sure,
being
and he tried to
detained.
run away.
But this isn't an
that
issue.
is a fucking irrelevance in comparison to this video that exists of them standing the guy up. I'm watching it right now, and they're fucking punching him. They're
Yes,
just
that's bad.
But,
Okay,
that's what the
sure.
conversation's about, is the excessive force. We're not talking about whether or not, he should have been detained or not. We're talking about whether or not the police officers went beyond the line of duty and were inappropriate in their actions.
And this is where
toward
progressives get it wrong, where it becomes a personal responsibility act of the person that violated the crimes and didn't comply with law enforcement officers.
Well, he already committed a crime. Aren't we all acknowledging that? I don't think anyone's fighting about whether.
And you're not accepting that the guy needed to comply and be detained.
Sure, of course he did. I'm not disagreeing
Okay,
with that.
yeah,
I don't
then
think
we can
anyone's
agree on
disagreeing
that.
with. Yeah, but now you're just fighting ghosts. Nobody said that he shouldn't have been detained or that he didn't do a violation. He tried to flee on foot. All those things are bad. You should try to work with the police. The issue is, even if you don't work with the police, even if you resist arrest, if your department itself finds that you have excessive force, the whole conversation is around, are police being properly policed themselves? That's really what this conversation is about.
These police are being prosecuted. They have many counts, of which premeditated murder, I think, is one of the ones, as well as several other ones that are high-class felonies. So it's like they are being prosecuted.
I'll step in here real quick. I think it's, someone can correct me, second-degree murder, I believe they've all been charged with. Does that sound correct? That's what I believe I read.
The thing is, I think, obviously, I think everyone here would agree you should comply with the police, right? Sam Harris talked about.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, you should comply with the police. Sorry, I'll let Chad finish his point.
But the reason I have a problem with focusing on that aspect of it is, I think that as long as there's agreement there, it just seems like obfuscation to focus on that aspect when that is admittedly the first video, even I watched, that was like, he didn't seem to be complying here. But then the later footage, that should be the focus of this conversation, that it's irrelevant of his initial lack of compliance. How much different would the situation have
been had the person complied?
Sure, so what you're saying is if he'd have complied, maybe it wouldn't have led to that. But the point is it should never lead to that. Police should never be in a situation where they're violently beating someone.
Comply.
Yeah, but you would expect that the trained professionals, the actual authority figure there, is going to conduct themselves better than the actual, at this point, possible criminal. Yes, I agree, criminals shouldn't do criminal shit, but I expect more from my police than I expect from criminals.
Attack a police officer, they had the responsibility.
They didn't attack.
Also
he didn't attack in this case. In this case, he ran away.
Did you not see him fighting the cops?
I haven't watched the full video. I've read all of the descriptions about it.
Watch the video and see what happened.
But
so
police should use appropriate.
First of all, should I bother even raising my hand? I don't know. Because that's
no. I'm trying to get everyone. I'm going to go to CTV next because we haven't heard. But please go ahead, Brian.
Okay, sure. So yeah, you're saying, well, what if compliant things would be okay? But we've actually seen video of people doing their very best to comply with the police and still getting shot. That is actually not a guarantee. And Erudite said it absolutely correctly. They are the professionals. It is their job to safely take a criminal into custody when at all possible. Sometimes it's absolutely not possible. That's true, right? But when at all possible, that is their job. They failed at their job, and they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, as well as many other police officers we've seen in the past who got away with it.
Do you think in this situation, with how much of a fight was going on, that the police shouldn't have been able to provide force and response?
No, you can provide force. No one's saying that you can't provide force. Absolutely.
Can we just get on the same playing field? Just to make sure, I'm worried that we're all fighting when we all agree. Do we all agree that he should have been detained and that resisting arrest is bad? Do we all agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Do we all agree that in this instance, even though he's resisting arrest, it appears that the cops engaged in excessive force, and that's bad, correct?
All right.
That,
let me
that
see if I can.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the video at all.
Oh.
So I'm gonna see if I can get some disagreement here, and we're gonna start with CTV.
I didn't see the video either, so she has no room to about it.
I've read the police department statement. Like, it just came out. I've been streaming this entire time. I haven't watched it. I will watch it on my phone at some point. I'm just telling you, the police department themselves found them to be guilty of excessive. Like, I don't know what else to say. If the department themselves has an issue with their behavior, I'm going to take that pretty heavily. I'll still watch it, but I'm a fucking sissy. I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to find it excessive force no matter what, but I am not the arbiter of whether it's excessive force. Who cares what sissy white woman has to say? I care what the department has to say, and the department fired them for excessive force.
Well, if the department fired them, then even though I haven't seen it, I would tend to agree with you on that. If the department came out and said, yes, they were excessive, then that's likely the case.
Let's do this.
But I would
CTV, let me go to CTV here real quick. So it looks like most people haven't seen the video, which is totally understandable. This just came out like 20 minutes before we came on.
I've got a
Let me ask you this, though. You can, but I don't want to show it on stream.
Can you send it to me so I can watch it on my phone?
Mic check, just make sure it's working.
Yeah.
You sound good, CTV. So let me ask you this, CTV. A lot of people are already claiming that this has to do with systemic racism, that the fact that this gentleman was black contributed to his death. Now, understanding that most haven't seen the full video, my question to you is, do you think it's a fair assumption when a black man is killed by the police in a way that seems like excessive police force, that his race had something to do with that, keeping in mind that all 5 officers that interacted were all black?
Mm-hmm. They're all black. The whole thing is black on black. Right? We just got one labeled as a criminal and the other one labeled as the cops, right? So somebody said earlier, they were talking about the stats for violent crime and why it is that black people are seen to be more violent. Well, they commit the most violent crime.
Yes.
That's pretty simple.
It's more likely to
draw. At the end of the day, though, when it comes to police officers, we do ask these men and women to go into situations with varying degrees of types of people, and just as an instance, right? The border crisis and the number of peoples coming across and aiding to commit more violent crime. And then we've got the riots from 2020, right? That Antifa getting organized and going through Portland and everywhere else. The overall state of people is way too violent. People are way too easy to start destroying property instead of trying to use their words, right? And all this justification from Martin Luther King, talking about that a riot is the voice of the unheard. Now, right, that may have been true in the past, but right now riots are just an excuse for people to go loot stores. That's all it is. So,
would you be okay
if there
with
was
a
actually
riot that targeted only like police paraphernalia?
I'm sorry, was I just talking?
I'm just gonna interject it.
Did I interrupt you?
It's fine. You're okay.
Leave CTV
You're gonna be
finish
okay.
his point.
Okay, I'll ask your question after you finish. Go for it.
Well, we're waiting. In the words of Judge Mail, go ahead, CTV.
Can we stop the posturing, CTV?
All
You're
right,
only
all
back
right.
5 minutes.
He's done too many drugs.
I'll tell you what. Go ahead.
Rachel's just throwing him under the bus.
No, I'm serious. Like I sat back here, wasn't trying to be interrupted to y'all, and y'all want to act this way now.
Okay,
right
I'll watch
in
the
middle of
video.
thought
You
area,
finish.
right?
Yeah.
So sissy white woman, sit down and shut up. Not that
CTV,
hard.
do not make me side with not so erudite. We are
No, do
sworn
it.
enemies.
Do it.
You are making us into friends right now.
Okay, can I ask my question now?
My God, come on, please.
Okay, my
Move
question
on.
was just to
It's
rerail
gotta
us
air
back
like-
on. I'll rerail us. Okay, would you still feel the same about riots if the riots were only targeting like police paraphernalia, so targeting police buildings, police cars, that sort of thing? So they weren't targeting private businesses, which I agree with that. Would you have an issue with riots still in that case?
Yeah.
I paid for those cop cars.
Yeah, like I don't understand where it is.
You're right.
Like the
So
the misgap in
no
your
revolution
knowledge or the
ever.
misgap in
Okay,
your ability
based.
to be able to understand words, right?
Destruction
Like
of property
taxpayers,
is bad.
taxpayers have to pay for the things that the government actually uses.
You're correct, but
right?
if you're rioting against
Right.
the government,
So
you
that
should
means-
target their things.
Hello.
They
Just
are
because
not-
it's owned by you and everyone else doesn't give you the right to destroy it. You
What
fucking
else,
moron.
If you're going to riot, do you think that all forms of revolution, even if it's violent, are just always
Well,
bad?
either you pick up and you're going to overthrow the whole fucking thing, right? Or you're going to try to work within the system to try to enact the change that you want. And if you don't, then you're just going to end up pissing everybody off and nobody's going to listen, which is exactly
Okay,
where we're at now.
you know what? Based. You know what? You've all heard it
Wait
here.
a minute.
Never be a
Target
revolutionary ever. You're always wrong.
That's not
Just
what was
listen
said.
to your parents, boys and
Hello.
girls.
You know,
All right, let's go to
I
Rachel.
have to say,
Real quick, let's go to Rachel.
Okay, so I'll say real quick first, CTV, Erudite and I do not like each other, but you calling her retarded is absurd because you're far more retarded
I
than
didn't say
she's
retarded,
ever
so
been
thanks for not
for
listening.
a moment in her life. Okay, she's
I
way
believe
smarter
the
than
point
you,
is
so
that the
you
victim's
can shut
response
up
was
about that.
poor, pragmatically.
Can I just say? Sorry, I just want to cut in quickly. I love cutting across a woman. I can't resist. I can't resist cutting across a woman. I have to do it. Okay, just very quickly. I just want to
Fair
say, the
enough.
Turk, you would have been there in 1776, going, "Don't destroy the redcoats' property.
Yeah,
I paid for that. I paid for that. Don't destroy the redcoats' stuff."
There is a
No,
complete
that
difference
revolution
in-
was
I
totally
wanted-
based, okay?
I wanted to
Founding
respond to that.
fathers good, but now revolution bad. Got it.
I want to respond
Okay,
to that.
so the Turk respond, then I want to let Rachel finish her
So
point.
going back
Go
to
ahead, Turk.
1776,
make
there
a
were
real
other
point.
forms of rioting, such as dumping an entire boat's worth of tea into the ocean. There were all sorts of other
Destruction of private property,
delegative
yeah.
things that they were trying to do in order to work within the system. And then
Destruction
going
of
to
private
CTV's point, once it got to actual revolution, they raised militias and served and started armies. If Eurodite wants to compare this to a revolution,
Was that tea
Do you
private
think that-
property? Was
do you
that tea?
think
Was
that-
that tea? Hang on a sec. Was that tea private property?
I believe it was.
Okay, so if you support the
Oh,
cause,
no,
you
it
do
might have
support the
been,
destruction of.
It might have been.
Do you
from the
think?
No, it was
Do you
British.
think
It was
like a
British
raised
property.
army might do a bit of like damage to government facilities and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I would expect the other army to be raised, the National Guard, to go in and also do the defense.
Okay, based.
Let's go to
We
Rachel.
agree.
Okay, so to kind of bring it back into the topic, I'm a firearms instructor myself, and I had to go through a bunch of training and classes to do that. And I'd say 75% of the people who I was in these classes with were police officers or former police officers. And they do go into some really dangerous situations. I've had to deal with a home invasion myself, and there's a lot that goes into this kind of a situation. If you're worried that somebody might use deadly force against you, you're not going to take any risks, okay? So that is a thing. However, if the police precinct itself is saying that these guys acted outside of, what they were supposed to do, without me having seen anything and without me knowing anything, I just have to say, like, if the police are actually saying that, that's a pretty big thing. Like, it's going to be tough to argue against that, unless you're going to say that the police are bureaucratic and that they're, SJWs or something like that. That's kind of what you're left with to argue.
Yeah, like, my only disagreement here, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you just said, is that, like, I don't necessarily rely on the department to tell me if it's wrong. Like, we've seen the police, I mean, look, the people, colleagues back other colleagues, right? There's a thin blue line. It doesn't necessarily mean that when they're saying that everything's okay, that everything's okay, right? Like, they have the people, law enforcement or anyone with a weapon are people who should be watched closely, right? The military should be watched closely. The intelligence agencies that you were talking about should be watched closely. Right, anyone with power needs to be monitored, and so I don't necessarily believe like the police unions when they say no, definitely everything was fine, and it's wrong for you to even question that.
Okay, let me ask a question because just a show of hands, I have two questions. I think something interesting came up. real quick, do you think, raise your hand if you think that it is acceptable to have these sorts of riots as long as it's solely directed at government property? So we're assuming no private individuals' properties hurt, no private persons hurt. It's just directed at government property. Can you raise your hand if you think that that's acceptable? Just Faraday? Okay. And then the other question I would have is there ever a time when an incident is so egregious that the greater good demands that some sort of small collateral damage from private properties is justified when rioting? Would anyone say that?
So I want to modify this.
I would modify that.
There needs to be more. When I say government property,
I promise. I don't think that riots should ever be acceptable. Right, like, because I don't know how you bring that in to the political system. I guess it's riot time, and so we riot. I think the riots must incur some risk, right? Like, you're going out there, you're going to make a statement. I mean, if you want to riot, then go out there, you can make that statement, and maybe I might support you in that statement. But like, I don't know how, as a society, we just say like this is just okay.
But it also becomes a delineation between what is a protest and what is then a riot, right? A protest is a outward show of disagreement with some topic or entity, and you're standing with solidarity with people that share that same feeling. When it starts to go into chaos, destruction, violence, you've then crossed the boundary of being a concerted and tactical maneuver that, Erudite might call it revolutionary or a protest, but it's like when you get into the riot part of it, that's not acceptable and it doesn't help any cause.
I think, okay, we need to clarify what we mean by government property, as in, can you go and torch a local courthouse? Like, probably not the best idea to do that. If it's torching a police car or something, if it's like a symbol of that which is, part of the oppression or whatever, probably fine. I think you can ratchet that up. Like if, for example, there was a fascistic takeover of the United States, I think you could more easily justify the targeting of like a courthouse, which is installed, fascistic judges that are, whatever. Maybe we'll see that when Trump comes into office, am I right? But I think that broadly speaking, it needs to ratchet up dependent. And that's why I think the revolution, the 1776 thing is relevant, because I think in that case, you probably did have you would probably agree there's a more justified cause and a bigger reason to actually take more violent, aggressive action. And I'm sure you'd agree if there was like, for you, a hardcore communist takeover of the United States and they were trying to implement, communist policies that you felt would be destructive, you would probably agree that militias would be justified to engage in sort of destructive action against government property.
That's a symbol of it, right? All I'm hearing now is justification for January 6th. That's all I'm hearing right now.
So
all the left right now is just like, let's just jump on the January 6th bandwagon.
First of all,
we don't want to do it because it's not our narrative that we
I don't want to cuck anyone, but we've got to be careful because I think YouTube are pretty tight on we don't want to get into a conversation about election, I don't think. I'm happy to, but I'm concerned of YouTube's TOS.
Yeah, I don't think
I think it's the same to say,
you
but
said like
there's a difference between an authoritarian takeover and delusions about elections being stolen.
No,
I don't want to get into that.
You don't even have to worry about the election in order to address the issue of January 6th. The real thing that you're addressing is the fact that we had people go to the Capitol and were standing on the Capitol, and then they went into the Capitol. That's what you're talking about. Right, so
that's a good point. No, your point is sound. That's why the reason behind the riot.
Prime, then Rachel, then Erda. Prime,
okay,
please.
Yeah. So my problem, Chud, with your statement is that it's like this idea of the fascist takeover. You rarely see in history just like a hard takeover of society. I'm literally trying to defend you. I'm only trying to help you out. Shut the fuck up.
If I needed Prime's help, I'd be in a way worse situation.
Shut the fuck up. Right? Because people with brains are talking. All right. So there's rarely that moment, right, where like, okay, we're under fascism. Fascism is a creeping threat into our society. So at what point does anyone get to decide that this is fascism and we're completely outside the political system, and so that those mechanisms won't work, and so we have to riot and do all that. So I just don't know how we, again, say it's okay. Not that I'm saying that you can't riot, that you should never do it, but I'm just saying that there's a risk.
Look, it's obviously not going to be simple and straightforward, but I think we'd all agree that if it was 1940 Nazi Germany and the German resistance wanted to go and bomb a factory making German tanks, government property, I think we'd agree that that would be acceptable, right? That's the point I'm making. So
I'm just saying that's a hard slope.
You could argue against the German police attacking them, the Nazi police. Like, there's a certain point where you probably can justify more what would normally be more egregious acts of violence against the state as they implement more authoritative,
If you were doing that inside your own country, though, do you then become the thing bringing it down from the inside? And if it's weapons manufacturing, then I can assume from what you're saying that you're fighting an external war at the same time. So then you yourselves end up joining the other side of the external war
bring
inside.
Down the Nazis a peg or two from the inside.
You,
all right, let's go to
Rachel. Become a traitor to the nation, and in this example,
I think being a traitor to the Nazis, call me fucking, whatever. I think that's probably a good thing, considering all the bad shit they were doing. I don't know. Call me crazy.
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
We want to hear from Rachel, and we'll go back to Erudite, then CTV. Oh, I'm sorry, Turk, then CTV. Sorry.
If CTV wants to invoke January 6th, that was who were the people who were ushering everybody into the Capitol? Feds. There were feds. There's been hearings, multiple hearings, where we're trying to figure out who was this guy who was provoking this stuff. Who were the people who were telling everybody they could go in? Again, this is something that is a historical pattern for hundreds of years. If you know your history, you can go back and see this. It's never a grassroots thing where people are just really mad and so they decide to storm the Capitol. Hell no. There was idiots like Nick Fuentes and others who were telling people, we're gonna take the Capitol. Go in there and take it back. They were inciting this to happen, and they do it on both sides. They do it to the left and they do it to the right, and they incite violence and they incite false faux revolutionary bullshit to stoke all kinds of unrest so that they can push shit through. Does anybody remember after the Big 9 event when they had to shove through the Patriot Act? Okay, the left was against that at the time, and they were right.
But you're saying Nick Fuentes is a federal agent? Am I getting that right?
Right?
You said that federal agents were getting people. So you're saying Nick Fuentes is a federal agent that was getting people to go in?
I think that he is, but there was another guy the night before.
Have you got any evidence to support that claim at all?
I do. I did a whole episode on it with my friend Courtney Turner. You can go subscribe to her channels and see it there.
So your source is yourself. Your source is your own content.
No, my source
it's like how she threw in a shameless plug right in the middle of that.
Yeah, that's a smart businesswoman, CTV.
The source? It's me. I'm the source.
You want to know? Do you want me to answer your question?
Yes, please do. I'm interested.
Yes. If you look at the people who run the America First Foundation, they have ties to all kinds of suspicious organizations. These are not grassroots people who just became super influential for no reason. They're people who were employed by Rand Corporation or other entities that are connected with the NSA and the CIA who invoke these things and provoke these things, okay? So it's not something I can tell you in a 10-second soundbite, but yes, they have connections to giant DARPA and CIA agencies where they provoke these things and they show up and they say, everybody go into the Capitol. And it's the same thing on the left. I'm saying they play both sides. It's a false dialectic, right? So when Antifa and black people, Black Lives Matter are upset over actual things that they have a bone to pick, right? They have a legitimate concern. They will insert agent provocateurs to make those people burn down their whole damn neighborhood, ruin their whole neighborhood, right? Which pisses off all the white suburban people, and they go, well, look at these black people just ruining everything. And then they'll do the same thing on the other side. They'll provoke the right wing to go in and do crazy shit like Charlottesville or January 6th. And then everybody on the other side goes, look at these radical extremist fascists. What are they doing? And then both sides fight, and then they can shove through anything they want. They can shove through a Patriot Act. They can push through all kinds of legislation. They can say, we need the global government for this. It just provides a pretense for them to take the reins of control and do whatever the hell they want. And we down here on the lower levels of society are all fighting each other. That's how this works.
And to confirm as well, you think that the Patriot Act in response to 9/11, are you saying that 9/11 was then some sort of government?
I'm saying the Patriot Act was absolute fucking bullshit. Yes.
But 9/11 happened as it was told, but the Patriot Act...
No, of course not.
Okay. Okay, so what happened on 9/11? I don't get too off topic.
That logic, the Englishman who doesn't know anything about this, sure, but
I used to be a 9/11 truther, by the way, but continue.
Why do you think there's a camera on every corner of every public square everywhere now? It wasn't like that before. Why do I gotta take my shoes off at the airport? Because I'm scared of some Muslim terror. Freedom isn't free, and they're gonna come take me because of my freedom. They're gonna kill me because of my freedom.
It's actually
my understanding.
And the
shoe thing is the federal government trying to make sure people are clipping their nails.
It was all garbage. It was
My understanding.
Oh, go ahead, Chud, real quick. Then I want to get to Erudite.
Okay, that's fine. My understanding is that what happened in 9/11 is the American government realized, holy fuck, we do not have any measures in place to stop people bringing all sorts of crazy shit on planes. So they put in place measures, to make sure.
Nope.
Okay. You're saying no, but this is why it was put in place. For example, you're talking about the shoes being checked.
That was a pretense. That was a false pretense. Do you think that? Okay, so here's a
no. You're just wrong. You're just wrong on this. You're saying I don't know. You are wrong.
Yes,
okay,
I can prove it. Okay, I'll prove it.
Okay,
so,
all I'm trying to say, let me just finish my point.
You have to
the reason that there is admittedly excessive at times, I agree with that. I think that there's been excesses that have been put in place, but that's because 9/11 scared the American fucking government shitless. There weren't things in place. Okay, so I'm just falling for the bullshit narrative, and your schizoid fucking the source is me shit is what I should be listening to.
No, it's not the source is me. It's not the source is me. We have 20 years of hindsight now, okay? We know there were no WMDs in Iraq. We know that all of the people with box cutters on the planes, allegedly, were from Saudi Arabia. So why the fuck did we invade Afghanistan? Why did we have a 20-year-long war in Iraq? That was all bullshit, and the right wing fell for it, hook, line, and sinker.
Don't forget about the Gulf of Tonkin.
There's more straightforward. Okay, you're now pivoting off to the war in Iraq. We were talking about the checking of the shoes. Okay. The reason for the shoes is because there was concerns that things could be concealed in shoes, and it's a pretty reasonable thing of, well, let's check, take the shoes off so we can check that.
Yeah, because you had a shoe bomber. You believe in the shoe bomber?
So the shoe bomber is fake as well. Okay.
All right.
So this is the beauty of the conspiracy. You just say everything is fake. And how can I respond to that? You just say it's
I have a bridge.
Please. I'm going to jump in here. I'd be happy to moderate a debate between you two on this topic. It's a little off topic, though. I enjoy the conversation. But we need to get Erudite and Turk in here. So Erudite, will go to you. You can comment on this or to the things that were said before. It's up to you.
I'll build a bridge because this is the issue with. This is the issue with conspiracy theories, is we label them like conspiracy theories, which allows us to hand wave everything. And the problem is that, like, Epstein was a conspiracy theory until he fucking wasn't. And the issue is that, like, with Rachel, the problem is that, like, when you get into, like, this element where there's, like, this conspiracy theory, I feel like it goes so far that, like, people can't buy into it, where it's like, there is a good question about Saudi Arabia versus Iraq. The proxy wars is a very interesting question, right? It's very interesting, but it doesn't mean that 9/11 was necessarily fake. What it means is that 9/11 was taken by a bunch of antisocial, opportunistic politician fucks, who we would probably all agree politicians are opportunistic fucks, to wage a war in a direction that they wanted because there was a large oil reservoir that they were interested in. Like, this is the problem with conspiracy theories, is they go so far outside of the bounds of, like, there are problems in the government, there are corruptions, there are things to pose questions at, but it's not necessarily like fucking, like, are there lizard people? I know you're not saying there's lizard people, don't worry, I'm not attributing that to you, but, like, I don't know if questioning 9/11 is the part that matters. Like, the part that actually matters is being like, where are politicians failing us? Where are they taking bribes? Where are they doing these things? Not necessarily because they want to control us, but because politicians are antisocial fucks who don't care about their constituents, who don't care about their voters, and are interested in lining their pockets, right? So there's the bridge. I'll give you guys the bridge. I don't know. I guess do what you want. I don't even know where we were before.
I totally agree with that.
Do we all agree? Do we all agree that when police use excessive force?
15 seconds.
I'll ask Turk. Turk, do you now agree that if police use excessive force, that was bad? And in the case of this individual that we started talking about, excessive force was utilized, and that was bad.
But what's your solution then?
Well, let's leave the Turk answer, then we'll go to you, CTV, I promise.
Yeah, so
then over to Prime.
I agree that the police are prosecuting them and that the trials should happen the way they should, but riots should not be ensuing due because justice is being served. I believe the justice is the prosecution of the people that did the bad action.
Right, so
not the rioting of the community.
Sure. So I guess I would point to you of like, I've been looking a lot into political theory and politics and like the working of your guys' judicial system specifically, because you guys have a bunch of like weird shit that Canada doesn't have. And this is the issue that I have with the like justice is being served. And I think this is the issue that a lot of BLM has as well, is these individuals might get charged and these individuals might go to jail, and that's good. The problem is that there is a system-wide failure where police are regularly overstepping their bounds. They're regularly mistreating people based on their authority, and it's very, very difficult to hold them accountable because of things like unionization and lawsuits and stuff like that. And so when we're saying like the system just has to be the one to self-correct, it's like the problem is the system itself is failing us. The system maybe from the very beginning was failing us, particularly with unionization, right? And so good job, CTV. You make good noises. I'm gonna record those and play them to myself later. They're gonna be good.
Is that a Down syndrome? Wait, are you saying she's got Down syndrome or something? Is that what's going on there?
You know, we're steeped in ableism and sexism this panel. Can we get some racism thrown in here just to round it out? You know, let's go to the Turk real quick and then we'll hear from CTV.
So to Erudite's point, I would say that justice is being served in the individual instance that's occurring, but I think where the conservatives versus what progressives would think as like a broader correction towards the improper actions of police, rather than causing riots and burning down precincts or cop cars or doing property damage, I think most conservatives would think that more protest and structured civil discourse would be a far more effective thing, and it needs to be applied at a much more broader spectrum or a broader scale.
So let me pose you this hypothesis. I'm curious what you would answer. So I'm going to like put you in the mind of a progressive, and you're going to hate it, but I believe in you. So say you're an individual and you believe that not just in the failing of these individuals, but that the entire system is getting rotted from within out, because there's so many people with perverse incentives that have corrupted the system and basically allowed like powerful people to kind of do whatever they want and get away with the system. If you were an individual who believed that, you believed essentially that the system itself has gotten to a point where course correction by just like the typical means is insufficient, what would be your recommendation to them?
They need to be doing more civil unrest, and they need to do it at a broader delivery and doing it more often. That doesn't need to devolve into violence and rioting and property damage.
That sounds a lot like vote harder.
What kind of civil unrest? What kind of civil unrest?
I'm supposed to be on the right, but I hate it when people on the right are just like, well, just vote harder.
How do we think women's suffrage actually came to fruition? How do we think civil rights came to fruition?
Well, you see, the problem with that is that I don't believe in Americanism and I don't believe in democracy or civil rights.
Would you say the rioting is of similar scale to what we're seeing today?
Ew, why are you making out with your dog? Stop.
Yeah, actually, I would.
Hey, Rachel.
We had like massive riots.
How about you mind your own fucking business? How's that?
That made news. Headlines all around, right? Like it was actually like
let's leave Prime, please.
Yeah, I'll just quickly answer that. Like, yeah, we had like government responses to these riots in the way that we weren't having with peaceful protests. Like, I hate to say it, but like there was a response to riots, and the peaceful protests were more secondary.
Okay, let's go up to CTV. You can talk shit or whatever you want here, and then we're going to go
to the panel as well.
How much do I have to pay to get CTV?
We'll go to CTV.
That's what I want to know.
Quick, it'll take a lot to get me to boot him because I kind of like CTV, so it's not going to happen. But unless there's some break of terms of service. But there could be a mute anyway. CTV, please, whatever you feel you want to say.
Why, Rob?
We're listening to all of the things that we all pretty much know. Nobody's bothering to like really get into the history of how we got to this point, right? And the reason why we get to this point is because government starts authorizing violations of people's civil liberties without the people actually going back and then reevaluating the law and say, hey, this is a violation of civil liberties. We shouldn't do this, right? Or we shouldn't allow the government to be able to do this, because when they do, they end up using that power in an overstepping way to justify breaking into people's fucking houses, shooting their dogs, and taking their shit. That's where we're at in society. And until you start addressing that problem by way, say, I don't know, the fucking drug war, right? And start reining in the power of the police to be able to do no-knock raids and all this other shit on the people for basically next to no fucking reason, then you're not ever actually going to address the problem. You can say, oh, well, we just need to hold the police more accountable. No, they're still doing this dumb shit that they shouldn't be fucking doing anyway. So
I agree with CTV, and here's the problem. Turk, I kind of see where you're coming from of justice is being served, but the problem with the police doing this sort of shit is it robs justice from the person who's fucking dead, right? And I know it's like, it's already happened, we can't do anything about it, but it's about putting measures in place so it, you know, stops it from happening again. There's no reason the police should have done that. And, you know, that person is never going to see justice because they're in a fucking grave now. So clearly there's still issues here. Clearly there's fucking stuff that needs to be done. And whilst I appreciate civil conversation is the way to go about it in the best possible circumstances, if we're in a situation where things keep happening and civil conversation isn't working, well, what the fuck else are we supposed to do except, you know, make our voices heard more loudly, protesting within reason, certain rioting, targeting, you know, certain government aspects. Perhaps that is the solution. I don't know.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to give the Turk the last word. You had a question you wanted to pose to the panel. We'll try to wrap that up in the next 2-3 minutes. You can ask that question. We'll get responses. Then everybody will get a minute closing statement, and we'll move on to the next topic. So field's yours, Turk.
Yeah, so Prime, I appreciate me educating me on that. You know, I didn't live in the 67 era, but judging by what some of that stuff said, you know, a lot more people died in that instance. So I think if we want to have history go the similar path, there definitely needs to be more of what's going to be happening tonight in Kentucky and Atlanta. But I posed the question to the panel, what are y'all thoughts of the Atlanta Autonomous Zone that was taking place in the forests where they're trying to build the police training camp, and where I believe one of the Antifa militants shot into state police, and then they returned fire and did the bad thing to that person, and then violent unrest happened. What are your
autonomous zones are fucking retarded. The Chaz, one of the biggest.
They're rising up.
Well, sure, but then the problem is that they replicate. I'm not a fucking Antifa dick sucker or anything. Antifa are fucking retarded, okay? And they often replicate many of the problems that you have. So, for example, in Chaz, this is one of the biggest fucking things that happened that the left just didn't fucking account for. A young fucking black teenager was shot and killed. They all said it was some fucking fascist, and it wasn't. And no one was ever held to account. You know, less accountable than the police, that situation was. And the left still haven't fucking answered to that. So, unless there's some sort of official structure of accountability, I do not support these Antifa fucks of their own accord going and setting up their structure. There needs to be rules, there needs to be legislation, there needs to be ways to hold people to account if they fuck up, which, as much as the police have got issues, at least the police have some semblance of that. So until Antifa, whatever, are able to set up structures that deal with this, then no, they shouldn't be doing this sort of thing, and they should be dealt with, you know, to the harshest penalties possible with the police. Fuck those fucking freaks.
I go next then, because what I don't understand is that if that's your opinion, and sure, that's a rational opinion, I suppose, then why are you making excuses for riots? Because riots don't hold people to account. Riots are uncontained violence when it's an actual riot, yeah.
But a riot isn't a body and an idea. It's not a body or a group. A riot is just just an expression.
It's a random
Antifa is a
eruption.
group of people.
Yeah, but so what? Like in terms of we're talking about, the point was about like accountability, right? And the action, right? What Antifa is doing is
some fucker running into a store to steal some trainers. I'm not expecting them to have like accountability for what they're doing. They're doing something wrong, okay, sure, but they're fucking acting a random act of I want some fucking trainers. We're talking about people who are putting themselves in positions of fucking authority. I'm a community defense person. I've got a gun. I'm going to defend the fucking community, and then they fucking slot some poor fucker, right? And no one's held to account for that. And to this day, there's no justice for that. It's fucked.
I'm like a blue lives fucking defender here. What would you call going to a police station and burning that down for the sake of protecting black people? Like that's what, like they held themselves to a higher standard that we're going to take action, and then they burned that police station down. Is that people? That would be people trying to take others into account.
No, that's rioting that is directly at the people that they're rioting against, right? There's a very, very big difference between shooting a random black kid, part of your own, like, whether he's on your side or not, versus going to a precinct and burning down something that is essentially your property to some degree as a taxpayer.
The same thing.
No, it's not. It's wholly different. Killing a random black kid is very, very different than burning a police precinct down.
In the context of what he brought up, is that like he wants Antifa to have structure of accountability, that if you get things wrong, okay? So imagine this, a police officer kills a black kid, right? That's what's reported on the news. And so, as a response, we riot and we burn down a police station, right? Because, hey, it's gone too far. This shouldn't have happened. Except we find out later, it wasn't a police officer. It was someone else who did it. And the police officer tried to save the kid's life.
Okay,
right?
the other problem you've got is that's a random eruption of violence
accountability.
that happens, right? If I had fucking control, I'm not going to say go and burn down the police precinct, but I'm going to understand more so if that happens. And I'm going to contextually understand why that happened. But if you've got someone that's like, I'm part of a community defense force, they need to have some rules in place.
Vigilantism, that's all I'm saying.
I mean, I'm opposed to vigilantism. I think Antifa's not a good thing in general. But if you have, like, I think Chud is now talking about a like actual militia uprising. Like now we're getting like 4 levels larger. Like more like what Turk was talking about. Go ahead.
So in Atlanta, the Antifa created this autonomous zone. One of their militants shot at state police. He got injured, went to the hospital. State police returned fire, killing one of the people. Then that same week or that night, there was a riot in Atlanta where they destroyed cop cars and other property damage. Is that in support of Antifa trying to root out what they're trying to root out, or is that a backlash towards police doing bad things? Because the police got shot at. I mean,
based on your explanation of events, it seems like this group created this problem by doing this and shot at the police. The police shot back and killed someone, and then they
rioted.
That seems crazy to me. That seems like, the Antifa have created that problem. If anything, you want to be right against fucking Antifa for seemingly, based on your explanation, I don't know anything about it, doing some shit that was, not seemingly overseen or having a structure in place to deal meaningfully with issues like that arise. So it seems like that's an overreaction and pointing in the wrong direction from an issue that Antifa themselves have caused.
And that's why these riots are not a very beneficial mechanism for trying to get social justice properly served, because when a riot occurs, it's not structured. It's not actually trying to accomplish a goal other than causing violence and mayhem.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We'll give everyone a closing statement. I want to give the last word to Erudite's friend there. He seems interesting, so let's give it to... No, I'm just kidding. We'll go to final statements. We'll go in the order that we started, and then we'll reverse it next time. So, Chud, you got around a minute for a final statement. You can talk about whatever you want. Go ahead.
Okay. Police violence is bad. People dying is bad. Peace and love. That's it.
All right. Next, let's go over to CTV. You got about a minute. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think that I did a good job of pointing out the history and how we ended up getting to the position that we're at. Hopefully, everybody that's listening will start doing a little bit more to get involved in their governments and getting those laws removed. Because when you remove the laws, you remove the government's ability to be able to enforce the law, because it's literally not there, right? So as soon as you start getting your politicians to start cleaning up the law and removing it so that they can't enforce this dumb shit, then we'll be heading in the right direction. But you keep, stacking more law on top of more law on top of more law, and, then you end up in the fuckery that we're in now. So have fun.
Okay, thank you. Erudite, you got a minute?
What the fuck? We lost the plot. I don't know. If you're talking about like violent revolution for your country, I don't know. I guess history determines who's moral there to some degree. Obviously with a great cause comes like great loss, and that's why like we're fine with the revolution. But I'm not for rioting, taking private property. I don't know. What the fuck are we even talking about? We've like lost the plot like 20 minutes ago.
That's a sign of good moderation. So let's go over to Prime. Prime, you got a minute? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think the risk for rioting is the same as the risk of revolution. There's going to be a state response. There should be a state response when that happens, because I don't know how we bring this into the political system. Like, with just a group of people can decide that they were wronged and then they're going to unleash violence upon private property or people or government buildings, well, there's going to be a response, and that just kind of makes sense. I can say something might be morally justified, fair enough, but in terms of like how we respond as a society, it just kind of makes sense that we have a state response.
Okay. Rachel, to you, you got a minute?
Okay, for this whole minute, I would like to say that CTV is absolutely retarded and contributes nothing of value whatsoever, as usual. But other than that, I would say that we didn't really solve anything here, other than the fact that I think that I was kind of, maybe me and not so erudite, surprisingly, were the people who were kind of like, this whole Americanism system might be kind of stupid and not the best system, right? And Chud Logic surprisingly defending it, and us saying, you know, no, this is not like the best system, it's kind of stupid. It lends itself to shadow oligarchy and corruption and all kinds of other things. And that might sound surprising coming from me as somebody who's supposed to be on the right side of the panel. But I don't believe in Americanism, and I don't believe in perpetual revolution and constant upheaval and constant rioting and these sort of things, right? And I think that this idea of democracy and everybody gets a vote and everything, all it does is lend itself to radical groups who are going to, revolt continuously. And there's no end in sight to that. It's like this group has a beef, and this group has a beef, and this intersectional group has a beef. And so there's constant rioting and constant upheaval and constant violence. And I think this is a terrible and stupid system. And so I would agree with the left in the way that the system is retarded and needs to be completely redone. Although I would think that we would probably disagree on how we have to do that. So that's my closing.
All right. Lastly, let's go to the Turk. Go ahead. You got a minute.
So I'm a fan of personal accountability, and I do believe that the police did the wrong thing, and that they should be prosecuted, and they should see the entire extent and fullness of the law, longest penalties, slap the book at them. That's what needs to be done in order for the proper judicial response to occur. But I favor more on self-accountability on all of these respects, and the fact that as a society, we need to actually look into ourselves and say to ourselves, do I need to do the right thing, or should I just act out because I'm not happy with taking that responsibility? As a grown adult, I have to make many decisions that I don't agree with, but it is for the greater good of myself, for my family, for my community, and I believe that across the entire country, we need to have more prevalence of self-accountability, especially when it comes to complying with police, and especially when it comes to self-restraint from police and not doing things that obviously lead to them getting indicted for murder.
Okay. What a great topic. I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes. If you have to go to the restroom, get a beverage, anything like that, I'll just say a couple words here in the next couple minutes, and we'll wait for everyone to get back if they need to go. First off, again, this is Drunken Debates. John Burke created this show. He couldn't be here tonight. He had a family issue come up. But give his channel a check out, and as well as everyone that's on the panel tonight. I think it's been really good. Also, want to give a shout out to Shell Shock CBD, which he sells. He is the founder of that company. So for all of your CBD needs, go back to last week's show and watch Phil KOE. He's like a carnival barker. The guy could sell anything. He's fantastic. He could be selling me nail polish. I'd be buying it, you know. My thoughts on that first panel, I'm not going to say, what I think on the specific issue, but a couple things that I thought were of note. At one point, someone asked Rachel, how do you think women's suffrage came about? She basically wrote a book about it, so I thought that was interesting that didn't come up more. I was like, oh, here we go. Also, I found it very interesting that it was like we had right on right and left on left argument. I thought that was very interesting. But if I had to pick a winner in the spirit of how that first round went, I'm going to have to go with the Turk and CTV in a tie, because they are white men from the United States. And really, that's the only group that matters. So congratulations to you two.
Rob Knorr, how dare you?
It was fun. I thought it was
If you
heated.
think CTV won that, then I can see where the rest of this panel's going. And I'm excited.
You must be smoking as much weed as CTV if you think he won anything ever.
Rachel, this is my first time. Oh,
this
I was
affirmative
gonna
action for white
say that
conservative men. This is ridiculous.
Hey, I'm just gonna
Rachel,
say,
this is my
Chad, you were
first
defending
time.
the states, you fucking bad Brit Bonger. Very naughty. Very, very naughty.
That's true.
That
I'll
boy.
never forgive
Listen.
the tea. Never forgive the
All
tea.
I'll say, for my real opinion, after the show, we'll probably go to about 10:30. Though, if everyone wants to stick around longer, that's fine too. I always do an after show though. So
Trying to
people,
say to me because Prime and I have never been on a panel.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Just
Rachel, do you go on many
I was
panels
just-
with black people,
Oh my
or
God.
is that like something you avoid normally?
Son of a bitch.
Holy shit.
Anyway, let Prime talk.
I was just gonna say that like I've never met you, so very nice to meet you. But like I'm actually quite curious on your thoughts on Americanism, and how you define that, and what about it's not working? Because maybe I might have some agreements with you, but yeah, I'm just really curious about that. So maybe we should talk later on.
Yeah, sure.
well, it's funny you should.
Totally
It's
talk
funny you
about
should
that.
say that because. Yeah, we'll get right in here to the next topic, and it's weird you would bring that up because this has nothing to fucking do with that. So, anyways, on to the next topic. Again, I don't mind you guys taking the topic wherever you want to go with it. I thought that was fine. We almost got 9/11 truth shit. We could do that for 2 hours. I'd be fine
I
with that.
totally could do that for hours and hours.
I would like to
So,
keep my YouTube channel intact if at all.
Yeah.
Also, COVID? No thanks.
I know all of the phrases. I know all the keywords
Well-
and how to
All right. Here's what we're
What's
gonna
the
do.
topic?
Right. Well, if people say no to COVID, good luck with this one then. Next, Project Veritas has released a video claiming to show a Pfizer mid to upper level employee saying that the company of Pfizer is working on, quote, directed evolution of COVID to mutate it so that they could create vaccines to be able to deal with it. Is this not going to work for you, Andy?
No, so YouTube just struck Destiny today for literally covering this exact topic.
And Project Veritas.
Veritas itself is like,
yeah.
you can't on YouTube.
Is it just showing the
I'll get
video,
fucked.
or is it? Do we
No,
know
it's
if
talking
just
about
showing
it.
the video?
No, I mean Destiny is
wow.
the biggest pushback against any COVID conspiracy ever, and even if you just talk about this, I could get.
All right, here's what we'll do. Here's what we'll do.
Anyone else on YouTube.
Here's what we'll do. I will, because I'm a decent guy, I will switch to a different topic. But what I'll say is this. This is why everyone should go to comfy.stream or to rumble.com where you can talk about whatever the fuck you want.
And make no
you don't have to worry
money.
about these
Let's
draconian-
go, boys
Right.
and girls. Woo! Okay.
No,
Come on,
Comfy has
let Rob do
no
his show.
money.
He needs it. Come on, he needs it.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I would rather have no money in my integrity than selling out by having to bite my tongue all the time.
Yeah,
But
I'm so
nonetheless,
sad that I can't talk about COVID. What a great travesty to not talk about that fucking topic ever again. Oh no.
You keep. Well, we'll have a debate someday on not YouTube about it. I'm sure my friends that lost their homes want to shut up about it too. Nonetheless, authoritarian lefties going to authoritarian left. Let's go to a new topic then. All right. I didn't have this one worded out, so I'll just kind of flesh it out from the top of my head. My friend CTV up there, friends like Sean Burke, myself, people like Sonsel and others have at some point been suspended on platforms like Twitch for saying things that members of Twitch that are from the trans community somewhat disagree with, whether it be jokes or serious disagreements on athletics and other sorts of competitions. It seems as if you have to tiptoe around the conversation of trans when you're streaming on the platform of Twitch. My question is as follows. Does the radical trans community on Twitch do a disservice to other trans members who do not share these sort of censorious beliefs? Or do they represent a majority of people in the LGBT community? Do you agree with these attempts to censor people that you consider bigots? Or do you think that we should encourage a more free speech style? We're going to go in the opposite direction of last time. Hope you're not swimming on Twitch because you probably can't talk about this there. We'll give it a go, though. So let's start at the bottom with the Turk. Go ahead. You have a minute for the opening statement.
Yeah, so this is not my realm of expertise. I can speak towards the censorship and stuff. I definitely think that online platforms need to be more lenient when it comes to people conversing about these types of topics, because like the other topic that was floated, I think hashing out some of the details and some of the topics and where certain people stand on, sorry about that, well, where certain people stand on topics is a critical part of being in an online community.
This will be good as new.
And speaking into echo chambers is never a productive way to build your ideology. It needs to be more based. As far as some of these creators that identify these certain ways, I don't know enough, and I don't follow that complete dumpster fire because it's just not for me. Every time I've interacted with people like that, I end up getting called worse names than me just misgendering them.
Erudite.
So
Please read an empirical analysis of racial variances in police use of force by Harvard
Rachel, let's go to you.
economist
You got a
Roland
minute.
G. Fryer. It's the
Okay,
best study we have on
Erudite and
police
I got
use
in
of
a little
force
bit
in
of
the
a
USA.
Twitter spat about this just yesterday. I don't believe that just gender dysphoria in general is really a thing. I think it's a modern conception. I think it's something that is a product of modern luxury. I think if people still had to work for their food and, like slave away at things to get by in life, that nobody would be concerned about such things. And I think that trying to censor these sort of topics only goes in one direction, right? It lends itself completely to the idea that sitting around thinking about yourself all fucking day and going, oh my god, like, I don't know, am I a woman? Am I a man? I don't know. Like, no. That shit is bullshit. It's nonsense. It doesn't really exist. Yes, I know. I know the history of Southeast Asia. I know bocce boys. I know all these things. But that's all sexual perversion. That is all people who have a fetish. And everybody's laughing and everything. But no, there were not historically people who really thought they were a woman, and if they did, it was because they had some kind of gender, sexuality fetish thing going on. Even your precious DSM-5, until very recently when the activists got a hold of it, said that this was a fetish and that it was not a true phenomenon. So I don't believe in it. I don't think it's real. I think it's a product of modern luxury.
Wrap it up! We'll get to more in the open. Let's go over to Prime K's. You got a minute? Go ahead, sir.
Please no. Please let's not talk about this. This is the thing I don't want to talk about because it happens all the goddamn time. But going back to the topic that Rob Norg gave us, in terms of censorship, I go back and forth on this all the time, honestly. I think there are good arguments on all sides. I think that I think there's no one I think free speech absolutism is bullshit. I think it truly is bullshit. And I don't think anyone actually truly believes that. I think we could all agree here that if I threaten, make a direct threat to someone here against their life, that I should be tossed off and maybe banned from the platform. I think we can all agree that that's a problem. But that's censorship. And then it downgrades from there. So there's fomenting hatred against other groups. Right? Hatred that hatred can be carried out in real life, in real violence, even if it's not a direct call. So should that be canceled or banned? I don't know, but at what level should it count? It's not very clear to me. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, let's go up to Erudite. Go ahead.
Sure. So by Twitter spat, Rachel means that she posted some dumb shit about gender dysphoria, and I posted a hilarious meme of flat earthers believing that dinosaurs got yeeted into space when the asteroid hit, and it was extremely hilarious. By the way. It was very.
It totally did.
Sure. The idea that just because something is like a modern construct, that it's just not real, is very silly, right? There's tons of things that exist nowadays that didn't exist like 600 years ago that we'd all agree are real. Also, when it comes to the idea of like a third gender, there are a couple of minority of cultures that did actually have this. Like Fa'afafine in the Samoan culture is like the first one that people are always going to point to. The Fa'afafine have existed within Samoan culture for a very, very long time as a third gender. There's also a lot of biological evidence that suggests that gender dysphoria is very real. When you look at the brains, for example, of trans women, it more often mimics the brains
Spotted
of women.
hostile air transport.
Structures, you see their amygdala connections to the prefrontal cortex are a little bit different and mark more similar to women. So the idea that it's just like, it's just made up. Even if it was, it's still a prevailing problem. People are still suffering from it, and so we should still try to engage with it. But there's a decent amount of evidence that suggests that it's not just this like made up shit. We can get into brain science. That's my forte, so I would welcome your intervention, but
Prowler spot.
That's on for now.
Okay, thank you. CTV, you got a minute? Go ahead, sir.
Well, honestly, I don't think Rachel, even though she, thinks so poorly of me, right? I don't think she was far off the mark with what she said. I do think that people that have more time to be able to reflect on things and are not so in the mindset of I've got to be able to make sure I got shelter, something to eat, and water, then they have time to worry about these other things. That said, though, it's obvious that there are people around the world that are experiencing this thing for whatever reason it is, and it's not even something that's new to today's society. You can go back to the Romans, and you'll see that in their bathhouses they had people doing the exact same thing back then. So whenever I go to think about it logically, it certainly seems to be something that's more associated with people's experiences in life and what they end up interacting with their environment as they're growing up, or X, Y, and Z that have them feel a certain way. And then whenever they feel this, and then they examine what it is that they have to be able to examine around them from other men, other women, and they go, well, I end up feeling more like this, so this is the way I feel, so then I'm going to identify this way. Well, it's like, okay, you can do that, but that doesn't mean that everybody else has to respect it, and then you still are locked into biological reality, whether you like it or not. So that's where we're at.
Fuck my life. Now I'm allied with CTV against Erudite on this one. What the hell?
Oh,
Well, strange bedfellows. All right, let's go lastly to Chud Logic. Chud, you got a minute.
Okay, if you guys want to talk about gender, that's fine. I can just sit and listen. Okay, I fucking hate talking about gender and trans stuff, but I know people like it. If we're talking about big tech and stuff like that, I think that there's a broader issue here that people often ignore, is that these platforms rely on advertisers to actually function. And there's a big stakeholder there that people don't take into account when they're talking about this. They talk about free speech, they talk about the wokies complaining, but actually, alongside regulatory requirements, advertisers have a big, stakeholder perspective in what happens on these platforms, and they have a big influence on what is and isn't said. Jack himself, in response to the Twitter leaks, referenced advertisers and his mistake in bringing advertisers on board and them having a say in what is and isn't said. So, although I agree it's frustrating that people soy out about like jokes and stuff like that, the reality is the big player in all of this is advertisers. The question is, who runs the advertisers? No, I'm just kidding. But advertisers are important, and we should always talk about that. Anyway, that's my take.
Advertisers, fuck them.
All right. So, wasn't the topic that we were going to talk about, but since we're here, you guys can take it any direction you want. Let's start with Erudite. I think that, you got cut off towards the end of last topic as we were moving forward. So is there anywhere in particular you wanted to take this? Anything you heard that you wanted to respond to?
I actually think that the direction Chud's going is the most interesting one, because I think Chud's right. When often we're talking about things like censorship, we exclusively focus on probably the most unimportant parts, which the most important pieces is the economic principles behind a lot of this, right? And I think there's an interesting conversation to be had around big tech and their connection to the common man, right? Big tech is super, super vested in being as sanitized as possible, and appealing to mass groups. Now the issue is that I would argue that mass groups are not as interested in niche topics like transgenderism as Twitch moderation policy would suggest. And I'm super curious Chud's thought as to why Twitch moderation has evolved in the way that it has, that's so aggressively PC, when big tech in many ways, there's so much money that extends beyond Silicon Valley, which it feels like Twitch mostly appeals to that. I'd be curious.
I think big tech platforms are trending towards more pro-trans positions. I think because of influence from advertisers. If you look at Twitter's, Elon Musk was supposed to be the fucking arbiter of change, but a lot of the policies of trans-affirming kind of TOS still applies. My understanding is the misgendering policy still applies, which is something that's quite controversial. So, I think that even with Elon Musk coming on board on Twitter and a lot of the trans-positive policy still applying, demonstrates that it isn't necessarily ideals. It is more so the economic principles that are kind of, fueling a lot of this. And also I think I'm not 100% on this. I'm pretty sure that is some sort of regulatory requirement to protect people's identities in some aspect in terms of access to service and stuff like that. I'm not sure exactly how that plugs into it, but I think that's perhaps another aspect too. But nonetheless, I think that a lot of this, I think it is driven more so by advertisers than we will, admit. Public pressure certainly plays a part. But again, that links quite nicely into advertisers, because if there's a lot of controversy about platforms, we saw with Twitter, all the controversy led to advertisers pulling out. I think a lot of this ties back to like you say, the economic principles at play here, rather than people just wanting trans people to be safe or whatever.
But why are these advertisers backing out? Is it because they don't like what they're actually seeing on the platforms that they're advertising to, or the people that are on the platforms that they're trying to have buy their products? Or is it the people that are yelling at the advertisers saying, these guys are bad, they shouldn't be here, let's get them off the platform? Which do you think is the more probable thing? And that same argument can go towards the different platforms. Twitch is very progressive. Look at the Twitch Safety and Positivity Council, whatever it's called. How many conservatives are on that panel? Go to YouTube, or no, go to Twitter. Twitter would be the next less progressive platform. Even when the Jack was in running it, it was very progressive, very left wing. Then you go to YouTube. It's still a little more liberal, a little more progressive, not as bad, but it's much more lenient in the types of topics that it can be talked about. But there's no like center-right popular platform that moderates in a way that these advertisers would react to. One, because they don't have enough people on the platform, and two, that it's not as bad as what they actually think, and no one's yelling about them.
But I think the problem is, if you look at platforms like Rumble, the reason you find like CPMs from advertisers are lower because you're not going to get the fucking top tier AAA advertisers going on the platform, because the reality is Kellogg's, Cornflakes, or fucking Audi, or whatever big company you want to talk about, don't want their products advertised next to some Holocaust denial shit. They don't want to advertise next to some race
case. Hold on.
There's not enough people looking at this platform.
Well, I think the issue is that it's all about
CTV. Let's link CTV.
Sure.
Go ahead, CTV.
That last thing that Turk said is actually what it is, because Rumble's a newer platform. Twitch has been around for a lot longer, and they're backed by Amazon, right? So you have to consider how long there's been a platform, the type of the size of the audience that they've been able to garner, and then whether or not that's going to be appealing to the advertiser, right? Because if you only got, say, 10,000 people over here on Rumble and you got 100,000 people over here on Twitch, and you're trying to sell fucking maxi pads, right? And then fucking on Rumble, they're all like, oh, fucking women should only use tampons. And then over here on Twitch, they're like, well, you can use whatever you want. So then other people are like, oh, fuck them. They won't let women use tampons.
This seems to be a common problem with these old platforms, where they're not able to offer adequate, reliable promises to advertisers. So that's why you don't find the advertisers going there. Sorry.
If you even look at Rumble, they're starting to actually implement greater and greater like restrictions on things and like topics that you can talk about, because the reality is that advertisers don't want to be associated with it. This is the problem with every political person. Political people think that most people are political. Most people are not. 80% of the population doesn't give a flying fuck about your politics. They go to their 9-to-5 job, they come home, they watch like some shitty TV, and they just want nice things, and they don't want their kids to be exposed to weird ideas. They don't want their kids exposed to the transgender conversation in either direction, and they don't like meanness, because everything is essentially sanitized in our culture. So like even in Rumble, you're starting to see, as they're getting advertisers, they're starting to like restrict what people can say more and more, because advertisers want to be maximally sanitized, because sanitization will appeal to the most number of consumers fundamentally.
But advertisers also have the mechanism of not advertising on those types of platforms, right? The ads get bid in an algorithmic way, and a Coke can say, I don't want to be related to anything of this topic type.
Sure, but like in the case of Rumble's going to probably appeal to more male-centric type companies. Warpaint, companies that sell almost dominantly masculine type things, protein powders. You tell me what
platform's not going to be dominated by men on the internet.
Okay, but Rumble is going to be dominated probably by 99% of men, right? The difference
is
that...
So now you're just arguing a few percent. The internet itself is predominantly, especially in spaces like this, by men. Right? Okay. There's very few women that actually make their way into the space.
So now they're done.
Let alone be sitting out in the fucking audience.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it's Twitch, Rumble, fucking YouTube, any of them. They're dominated by fucking men.
Sure.
The
issue is that even companies, we're talking about who's going to go to Rumble. It's probably going to be dominantly male-centric type companies, whereas like things like Twitch appeal to broadband, family-friendly companies. Even in these types of companies like Warpaint, they still don't want to be associated with things like Holocaust denial, because Holocaust denial isn't exactly good for business, because most normies think it's fucking cringe.
Yeah, so I wanted to Thank you. I wanted to work off of what multiple people have said here. So I agree with Erudite in that, most people don't give a shit about politics, right? But also, most people, they're not debate bros, right? And they don't want to get into fights. They don't like that meanness, right? They don't want that coming in their direction. I look at the bigots on Twitter like smokers, right? Like a very small amount of people can make the space toxic, right? And that other people don't want to join in on. So it's we want to include smokers in spaces. We don't tell them that you can't be a patron here or make it things difficult for them. Okay, sure, but you also have to think about everyone else. You want to create a harmonious environment to get as many people as you can in. That's the thing. And the problem with a place like Rumble and others that are more free speech absolutists is that if you stick with that policy, you will always limit yourself because you're just letting in the smokers. People are just gonna say, I don't want to deal with that. So the economics, as people have already stated very well, are just in favor of more censorship.
Rachel?
Yeah, so Erudite and Prime are correct when they're talking about the corporate interests. They're right about that. However, I'm probably the only person on this panel who has 5 children. And we have a birth rate that is well below replacement in almost every nation on Earth, except for a couple of African countries, for the most part, right? So let's put aside the interest of corporations for the moment and talk about the fact that this Skittles, LGBT, trans ideology stuff is very detrimental to the birth rate. We now have
you can't put it aside. That's the point. Big tech, the lifeblood of big tech platforms is advertising money. You cannot fucking put it aside.
Right, Chud. What you
don't
want
have platforms
to
without the advertising money that function properly.
Is that what you want to do?
It's a fucking material reality of our society. It's not what I do and want to do. We don't have functioning tech platforms without the advertising money being pumped into it. YouTube is built for the ground.
One at a time, please. Let's leave Rachel go.
I've barely talked. I've sat here very.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I've heard enough already.
Do you want to cater to international corporations, or do you want to talk about what's true? Which do you want? Choose one.
Companies want to cater to international corporations.
I'm asking Chud what you want to
okay. Listen, you're like a fucking leftoid talking about having a revolution and magically everything's great into communism.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. If I could click my fingers and I could make things where it's about the truth and we don't have to cater to corporations, obviously, yes, I'd be up for that, okay? I'm actually pretty far left, despite people calling me fucking all this liberal shit, right? I'm pretty far left.
I'm further right than you are, and you're calling me leftist.
Okay,
I'm not, you fucking retarded woman. I'm saying you're like a leftoid because you're trying to conceptualize the perfect society, okay? That's what I'm trying to say to you. And we have to exist within the material reality we exist in, and without advertising money, these big tech platforms do not exist. YouTube wouldn't be YouTube that it is today without advertising money. It is as simple as that.
You want to cater to the international corporations.
Look at all of these platforms that are struggling. They struggle left, right, and center. Because they don't have the money that YouTubers got.
Leave Chuck finish. Okay, Rachel, go ahead. You got 30 seconds.
Okay.
Have it.
You have to pick one. Because the international corporate interest is not going to be in line with what's actually the truth, okay?
What
and what's actually moral and what's shut the fuck up. And what's actually moral and what actually matters. And we are on the precipice of a birth rate crisis worldwide. Okay, so if you want to continue to push the LGBT Skittles stuff, okay, because the corporations like it, that's fine, but you're going to be okay, if you care about things like unchecked immigration, you can't say, I don't want unchecked immigration if you want to promote all this LGBT stuff.
I think you mean M&Ms, just put them out there.
Let me try to move this forward. Let me ask Chud. Let me ask Chud and Rachel the same question and see what their answer is. Rachel, would you have the government step in and say, no, we're not going to allow these things to be made by corporations, these speech decisions. Instead, the government is going to take a stake in what's allowed to be said. Would you have the government do that for the issues you care about?
The government and the corporations are like this. You see, they work together. It's a transnational corporate government alliance.
If you had your way, though, that's what we're saying.
If I had my way, it would be they can choose to invest or not invest in what I'm saying. If they think that my message sucks, if they think it's not conducive to their business model, they don't have to sponsor it. But I'm still allowed to talk about it.
Well, that means
if I could be real quick, Chad, I think what you're saying is the reality is that's not going to happen. The reality is this advertisement's going to keep working. So if you had the ability to have the government step in and say, we think these issues corporations are interested in, but you shouldn't be allowed to ban people regardless of their advertising dollars, would you have the government step in and do that?
I would, but not in the way you're suggesting. I don't think you can force a company to do business with people, but what you have government institutions that help to manage and litigate the overreach of big tech. You have some sort of organization that if you're banned and you're so otherwise inclined, you can go to some sort of government org and they can mediate the situation for you, rather than what we got at the moment where you knock on the door of a big tech company, oh hey, you've banned me unfairly, I believe, and they go, no we haven't, get the fuck out of here, and there's no recourse beyond that. You know, you're left with going down the legal route, which is costly and most people can't do. There needs to be an easily accessible route with which to mediate these issues that you have with big tech companies. And also, I think that there should be more pressure on big tech companies to be more transparent about the reasons for bans, why they ban, and stuff like that. So, partly yes, but
we also probably have an issue. We also probably have the issue in big tech specifically, and that probably most of big tech, like major leaders, are left-leaning fundamentally, because typically left-leaning people are the ones most likely to go to college and university. They tend to be more successful in those spaces, and probably especially in the time when like big tech was the most important to get into, which was like the nascence of big tech. Probably it was a much more like high openness to experience, more left-leaning person thing to go into. Like I think a large issue is like when you look at things like Rumble and stuff, it's not popping off because conservatives just like really didn't prioritize like getting their kids into these types of work fields, because a lot of times they like viewed them as like non-core STEM. And like nowadays, computer technics is considered STEM, but a lot of people didn't prioritize it like 20 years ago.
No, I disagree with you there, because I mean I think we've seen, and there are books written about this, that like there's a very libertarian mindset in Silicon Valley, and like during that time, I think that's too vague.
Why do they all vote them? Why do they vote them? Well, that's what matters. If they're all in Silicon Valley and they're all voting down,
Valley is progressive transhumanists. They're not remotely.
You know, for somebody that claims to be so fucking smart, it's like you don't realize that California is as big as it fucking is, right? And Silicon Valley only constitutes the smallest percentage of fucking voters in the fucking state.
Okay.
Like Jesus
CTV,
Christ, will
I'm
you
going
step
to
your
tell
fucking
you.
game up?
CTV, if you use the insults that I hand you in my own like streaming name, you're not ready to play at the big kids table. I don't know what else to tell you, okay?
I don't even know what table you think you're sitting at, right? But understand that I'm at the head of this one, okay?
Okay, well, your not so erudite insults are falling really flat, just as a heads up.
Look, your name doesn't even fucking matter. You call your name fucking sissy white girl like you did earlier. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't change the fact that you just fucking wanted to say that the Silicon Valley controlled the entire voting block for California. You're a fucking moron.
I didn't say that.
Here's the funny thing with big tech companies. If you look at the CEOs of big tech companies, the original founders, Mark Zuckerberg, you know, Jack Dorsey, they set it up with a very libertarian mindset. Jack Dorsey wanted it to be a utility. But guess what? No, wait. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. If you read Jack, okay. If you read Jack Dorsey talking about Twitter and his misgivings and his mistakes, he makes it clear often that letting advertisers in was a mistake, because that fundamentally meant
aggressive. Jack Dorsey
shut the fuck up! Jesus Christ, does Big Papa Fashions let you talk this much? He needs to put a fucking leash on you and a gag. Holy fucking shit!
What? Chud.
Listen, here's what we're gonna do. Rachel, you got like 30 seconds, then I want to get to the Turk.
Sure. 30 seconds, I can tell you. Big Tech, Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, any of these guys, they are transhumanists. Okay, they're not libertarians. They don't care about humanity.
Worthless contribution based on complete schizophrenia.
Absolutely, it's absolutely important. If you know what transhumanism is, they don't care about human rights. They don't care about liberty. They don't care about any of that shit. You're deluded if you think that. They foresee a future. These are new age meditation guys who think that we're going to transcend the human condition. We're going to merge with machines and we're going to transcend humanity. They're not libertarians. You are fucking dead wrong if you think that. So please go ahead and refute me. Refute me.
Let's get to the... Turk's been very quiet. Let's get to him. He had his hand up. Go ahead.
So I work in big tech. I know how a lot of these startups actually originate and how the technology comes from an idea to sourcing funds to implementing an idea to selling an idea and actually developing, deploying, and going forward. At the very base level of what Twitter or what Google or what Instagram or what YouTube were supposed to be, they are very neutral platforms with the ideals that would be neutral to everybody. As the platforms start to get better, bigger and more popular and start to get the eyes of people that are interested in such types of power, like what you were saying, the platforms start to shift a little bit, but the core technology and the ideal behind it still stays the same. It's unfortunate, though, that as it gets in popularity, as the money starts to grow, and as the influence from these platforms starts to get beyond the original scope of the project, that's when political influence and that's where their core beliefs as CEOs start to steer the ship in the way that could be beneficial for the platform or could not be beneficial to the platform. Again, look at Twitch, how it started, how it's currently being moderated, and how the advertisers are trying to fit their ads towards that type of a demographic model. You go to Twitter, you see there's a lot of angst there, right? Because there's a lot of volatility in the types of conversations that are going on. So you see a lot of advertisers not really knowing, hey, I'm about to spend $20 million on this ad. I don't know if I should put it on Twitter because it might not get me the right sales. Then you go to Google, you see a lot of Coke ads. You see a lot of other generic stuff. So it's like y'all are all kind of right, but then y'all are also all kind of wrong. It's not as evil as what a lot of people think that.
Let me finish my point, okay? Let me finish my point. I didn't even get to finish my point, okay? So Jack Dorsey and other, you can look up the way other big tech fucking barons talk about this, right? They mention advertisers as the source of a lot of their woes in terms of great for the money, but their principles. It's the principles that they have to start to sell out on because advertisers want to have a say on what is and isn't said. Did you know that Jack Dorsey's conception of Twitter is that it was a platform on which the user would be the only person that could delete a post that was put up? That was his original conception of what he wanted it to be. And as regulatory requirements came in, as advertiser requirements came in, that was stripped away to what it is today. Elon Musk had all these principles about what Twitter was going to be coming on board. But he, as I fucking said when it first happened, hit fucking reality in the face as he realized, oh shit, I'm losing millions of dollars of revenue because of the way that things are happening here. I need to put in place things so that advertisers stay, right? It's all about the fucking advertisers. Follow the money. It's obvious. Rightoids deny it and gone about trans fucking humanism, okay? Because the fundamental reality is that progressive ideas are just a safer bet, okay? And the right-wing schizo posting is not as popular as people want to say that it is.
If I could get this going forward, I swear I'll get you in here, CTV. I want to ask Chud a question. I'm not taking a stance on this, but given if you're right, that it is all about advertising, would you recommend that right-wingers start to engage in cancel culture so that they could get their advertising dollars on these platforms?
I mean, they do already, don't they? I think you know, they want to act like they don't. But there's certainly examples of right-wingers
big true.
engaging in cancel culture.
But the question is, it's in your worldview, it wouldn't be as effective as the left's engagement because these companies have decided that advertisers will come when the left is saying you can't have platforms say certain things, but when the right says you can't say certain things, the advertisers side with the left.
It's because like the left is the
Balenciaga is probably.
I was going to say,
Sorry,
I feel like the left is just the new sexy religion. Like, unfortunately, Christians are lame. Nobody likes them. They spent too much time, like, shitting down everyone's throat.
We already have jobs. We work. We don't have time to interact on Twitter because we have real things to do in the world.
No. More importantly, the left has more money than most of you. That's just the reality, because they typically are more educated and therefore more successful. So it's more like, for advertisers, it is always going to be better to appeal to the group that tends to look like the most sympathetic and caring and like kind and soft. Always. So in the past, when the religious right tended to be that group, they appealed to the religious right because that was like where most of their voter bloc was, and more importantly, that's where the dollars were. But the reality is that like the left is filled with people who went to school, who got educated, who got better paying jobs, who have a whole bunch of
Then they got a
cash.
Dumbass education.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, CTV. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They have money. I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And they actually carry the goods to the places that you need them to carry them to. So
you're just saying nothing. You're just saying nothing. I'm not saying anything. You're not listening. You're just not engaging. You're like a 4-year-old just screaming and crying.
That shit that I'm listening to.
Yes, Rob will change your diaper after. I promise you, CTV. Rob will get to your diaper needs afterwards. But the issue is that the left has the money.
Maxi pad.
Go to Vancouver.
Jesus
Go
Christ.
to Vancouver.
You're
go
not
to
even saying anything worth fucking listening to.
Go to Vancouver.
Listen,
go to any major.
Time out. I have to draw the line at one thing. Seriously, that I'll leave a lot go, but don't be talking about maxi pads. It's near and dear to my heart. My wife didn't ask me if I needed any before she went to the store, and we all know men could have periods too. So please, let's not go down that road, please. Anyways, I think it's interesting, like this idea. Let me ask a second question to anyone on the panel. Is what we're now seeing, I know a lot of people said they haven't seen the Twitter files, but is there room in this discussion for possibly not just being advertised dollars, but also government regulation, telling companies what can and can't be said? I mean, for God's sakes, the topic that I wanted to talk about, we couldn't even discuss about a video that 16 million people watched in 4 hours. So clearly there's a market for that video, but we can't even discuss it because YouTube won't allow it. That seems to be more than about advertising dollars, right?
So, sure. I mean, this is an interesting conversation.
I'm just going to wait for my turn to talk.
Look. I agree, and I've got frustrations.
I'm cool with torpedoing her YouTube channel for this. We can talk about it if we want to, because that's the entire.
Great. I'm glad that your consent matters for my YouTube channel. Thanks, sir.
I only bring that up on the periphery. Now, listen, in the future, I mean, it might just be tough luck. Someone could drop out if the topic. But for now, we've made a decision that we're going to try to stay away from that specific area. But I'm just talking the general theme of there are areas we can't talk. That's
the problem is that you guys are probably going to be preaching to the choir on this one. I think, I don't want to speak for Prime, but I think Chet and I are both pretty staunchly anti-cancel culture and anti this idea of you're not allowed to talk about scary ideas, right? So if you guys want to fight that ghost, go for it, but they're not fucking here, right? I think all of us would agree that it's bad that we can't talk about certain COVID topics. That's a bad thing. However, the problem is that everyone wants to find a really simple answer, a really simple, sexy answer that makes them feel interesting and valuable. And the reality is that
free speech.
Well, the reality is it's more boring. There isn't some great superpower of 8 people trying to control minds and all these sort of things. It's a bunch of random people who are interested in money and want to sanitize the fuck out of everything. And it turns out that right now, after 2 years of COVID, spreading things that feel like COVID misinformation isn't very good for advertisers. They don't want to fucking touch it.
Did you see the New York Times article about the cabal of big tech censoring stuff and impacting how the election actually went down?
Yes, I have.
I'm Magus.
Okay.
Yes, the issue is
nobody that would hears. Be a handful of individuals that are actually going and coordinating this kind of stuff.
But the issue is that a lot of people want to reduce all of this to the same 8 individuals for every single problem, and it's not that simple.
And this topic is those 8 individuals doing that.
I'm going to guarantee you it's probably not that simple. Simple answers feel really sexy. It feels really nice to have 8 people to blame. But the reality is it isn't 8. What you have is a complex bureaucracy with minimal accountability. There isn't one person. There isn't 8 people responsible for this. There's a bureaucracy that they can always obfuscate to. There's no accountability, and they're chasing advertising dollars, and advertisers want sanitization. That's what advertisers want.
And Elon Musk is a perfect example of what Eridak is trying to talk about, right? Elon Musk.
And then we'll get to you, Rachel.
This, but they're actually right.
Yeah.
So, leave Prime go, please, and then we'll get to you, Rachel. Next.
Rachel, I'll let Rachel go.
1 second. Okay, go ahead, Rachel. Then.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be a right winger on this panel, and I'm agreeing yet again with Prime and Erudite on this. That's true. There's not like a handful of people who control everything. It's so like you'll get on the right wing, you'll get like, oh, it's the Jays, right? It's the Chews. And then you'll get on the left, it's the capitalists, it's the corporations. It's like, no, it's all of them. There are multiple groups at the table who have a say, who orchestrate everything. When it comes to big tech, when it comes to corporations, when it comes to government, in the UN, in the World Health Organization, all of these big three-letter organizations, right? So Prime and Erudite are actually correct on this. It's not just a handful of individuals. It's like it's like a bunch of criminal gangs that run everything when you come down to it.
In the grand scheme of
What religion are these criminal gangs? That's an interesting question, isn't it? What religion are we talking about, I wonder?
It's gotta be Abrahamic, right? It's gotta be Abrahamic, right?
In the grand scheme of things, the heads of these bureaucracies.
I'm talking now, CTV.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but I was talking too. So I think keep going. Prime. Okay, let's go.
We made
the
it
reality here is
CTV, please. Let's leave Prime go, then you. We made it this far with no mutes. Let's finish it up,
Rob.
No, he gave this time to Rachel and said leave her speak first, but I promise you'll be next.
Okay, check this out, Rob. 15 fucking minutes ago, you were supposed to throw the mic over to me. I've had to get myself in 3 different fucking times to be able to speak because you bypassed me.
I apologize if that happened. It's hard to keep track of all, but I promise
Wham.
I'll be
And I
next.
realize that, and that's
So anyway, Elon Musk is a perfect example of what I was trying to talk about, right? Elon Musk, not a left winger, and never really was, right? Even he pretended at some point in time, but he actually never
He's not
really
a
was.
right winger either.
You're
right.
Yeah, but he's a moron. But in any case, like Elon Musk goes in and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to change things, right? I'm gonna make this the free speech absolutist paradise you guys always wanted." And then immediately he hits with the economic realities of Twitter, and that he has to go back on all these things. You see him doing more and more bans here on the platform because he understands. Now that he has access to the books, he understands the economics, and he's responding to them. That's what everyone's doing. They're just responding to a series of incentives. And at least currently, the incentives point to sanitizing things in a way that sometimes seems more left wing.
All right, CTV. No, CTV's turn. Go ahead.
Oh my God, Rachel is getting the victim of misogyny left, right, and center.
I'm good at that. Go ahead, CTV.
So the reality
I'm a bitter misogynist myself, so.
Okay, CTV. Go ahead, man.
Okay, are we sure?
I'm positive. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So the reality is that it really is a handful of people, because there really is only a handful of people that are the heads of all these 3-letter bureaucracies that you named out, right? Yeah, you got some good technique there, right? The little short strokes let me know a little something, right? Anyway, so you're the one who decided to start cupping balls and doing little short strokes. You did that, not me. Now, that said, like the heads of these federal bureaucracies is the problem, and until you start getting Congress to start bringing that responsibility back into it, right? That's when you're going to be able to start taking out those little heads of bureaucracies, right? And then that way the people actually get to vote on whatever it is, instead of like, oh, the fucking OSHA decides they're going to pass some rule and do this, that, and the other. It doesn't go through any congressional checks. It just becomes law, right? That's a fucking problem. And that's the problem that we have all over the fucking country, is that people are not represented in this government. It's the heads of these bureaucracies that actually fucking make the law.
What exactly would they vote on, though? I'm curious. What exactly do you want people to vote on in this particular topic?
Right, if they were going to be changing any of the rules, like as an instance, like for restaurants, right? In one inspection for one state official, they got to have the doors going inward, and for a different inspection, they got to have them going outward. So they have to get 2 different sets of doors in the restaurant for them to have the, to keep their fucking business going. So that right there creates the problem. So once you start actually reining in the bureaucracy, then you'll be able to have it back controlled by the people. Period.
They want like an absolute democracy. That's not the term for it, but like a democracy in which we vote on literally everything for all of these.
No, what I'm saying here is that Congress is not the body that needs to be deciding most of these things. Most of these things need to be kicked back through the 10th Amendment back to the states, and let the fucking states do it instead of everybody trying to push everything up to the federal government and centralize fucking power.
Right?
No.
So then, how do those states?
the
Okay, but in
bureaucracies
this
that need to be in place at the state level, because then they are much closer to the constituents which they are
it's the
affecting.
state governments, right? And we're talking about Twitter. So you want each state to regulate
You don't
Twitter
even understand the
differently?
structures of government, so I don't even know why you're bothering to ask me a question.
I know you don't understand the structure of government. Why am I asking you a question here? Because it's pretty simple. Like, you're talking about less bureaucracy. You're introducing more bureaucracy.
No, you're taking away the bureaucracy at the top, which is federal, and you're putting it back at the state where it's supposed to be by the 10th
Good
Amendment.
word.
Did you bother reading the Constitution?
Enemy
Yeah,
transport
just
spotted.
say the cliche over and over.
Listen, I want to talk about misinformation. That's what we're supposed to be talking about, right? That was the topic we were getting to. You're talking about state intervention, stuff like that, right? Here's the reality of it. It's very fucking simple, okay? Social media, the growth of the internet, this has created new issues. We used to have top-down media structures where the newspaper said what was what. We read it and went, oh, okay, yeah, cool, sounds good. I'll go and get the influenza vaccine. Now we live in an environment where any fucking random schizo can say, got COVID, go and inject acid into your eyeballs and that'll cure you. And people might do that, and that is then promoted on these platforms and pushed to people algorithmically. So it is a complicated issue, okay? You've got government regulation preventing it in some ways from maybe limiting some of this stuff. NGOs are also getting involved and advocating for what can and can't be said. There's verified NGOs are verified on YouTube to flag misinformation, and that gets dealt with more seriously. I don't think it's perfect. I think there's issues with it, and I think we need to be cautious about the rate at which we rocket towards further and further censorship. I agree with that. But the problem is, there's another side to this too, and it's people that want to just spread wanton misinformation, rampantly, right? And misuse expertise and lie about this and lie about that, and it creates genuine issues in society that does cause harm. So I think we need to find the right balance between free speech, right? These stakeholders that are trying to limit misinformation, right? And also having, a reduction of harm when there's advice and guidance that is being pushed out that people take and fuck themselves up, right? That is the balance. That is the issue. It's complicated. We're still working on it. Hopefully we can move forward to a better place.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead, Rachel.
I actually agree with you on that because I do think there are a lot of really terrible channels and people who are promoting things that are misinformation. I would agree with you on that. But I don't think that the key to that and the solution is to let the transnational corporations just dictate what we should do based on ad revenue, right? So I think you would agree with me on that, wouldn't you?
The problem I've got is that's all well and good if YouTube is a hobby for you, but if YouTube is your career, your job, you earn a living with it. If Twitch is your living and career as it is for me, I have to rely on advertising revenue to some degree. So I guess you could say financially compromised to that degree, like a lot of people are, where you do have to rely on the platform to placate advertisers, so I can make money from that.
My husband's been building an alternative platform for the last year, and we have something called Dono Chat, which you can contribute to my stream, his stream, dozens of other people who use Dono Chat, which does not, it isn't subject to all of those kinds of different restrictions and things like that on different platforms. So that's why he started Comfy. So there are alternative platforms that we're trying to build. I know that you're right as far as reach, right? I just started a YouTube channel this week, so I do need some reach. However, I know that if I need to talk about something that's kind of controversial, I've got to go to Rumble or Comfy or one of these alternative platforms where I'm not just going to get hammered for saying, hey, think before you take the Pfizer stuff, right?
Let me ask you this. It's like we got a moment down. We're wrapping up here, but Shad and Aaron, I think you're sort of in agreement on some of this, so I'll ask both you, but anyone feel free to chime in. It sounds like you're saying that it's murky, and sometimes the disinformation is so bad that the government may need to step in. So, I just was curious. Would you say the United States federal government, sometimes they do have to make laws abridging the freedom of speech?
I would say absolutely not. They're the last people I would want to be jumping in and telling us what is correct and what is information.
Which is why we should yell fire in a movie theater.
Okay.
I agree.
Here's what I would say instead. Since it was directed at me and Chad, I will answer. Here's what I would say.
Wait, all you have to do, I'll just say one thing. All you have to do is look up COINTELPRO, and you will understand why you don't want the federal government in charge of what is information and disinformation. That's it.
Go ahead, Erudite.
What I would say is, it's really important that we understand major technology changes through an evolutionary landscape, specifically. When you see humanity experience major shifts in technology, you see vast changes across every single social structure that they have existing, right? When you look at something like the agricultural revolution, everything changed. Everything changed for Homo sapiens. The way that families organized, the way that social structures organized, hierarchies changed. Every single dynamic shifted. Unfortunately, it seems to be the case that social media is this new technological change. I don't know how we get away from it. Every single thing is going to be different. This is why I think conservatives are fucked in this new landscape, because the idea of preserving what used to work doesn't hold up very well in a major technological revolution. And so I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if it's going to look like a top-down endorsement. I don't know if there's going to be a private company. I don't know the perfect solution. However, I think
an enemy prowler.
I think we have to be
ammunition
Welcome
here.
to Costco.
I think we have to be
you.
maximizing
I'm an engineer. I'll
criticisms.
repair
I think we have
you.
to be
Welcome to
maximizing.
Costco.
Okay, I'm
Thanks.
just gonna howl instead if we want. Okay, I've been holding in a howl and my chat is begging for it at this point. We have to be maximally open to criticisms. We have to be realistic about the fact that we're going to be wrong most of the time.
This will be good as
and
new.
what works out is just going to be mostly what emerges at the top. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if it's going to be a government thing. I don't know.
Check your
I have
fire.
no
I'm
fucking
NC.
clue. And by the way,
how are you?
neither do any of you.
Eyes on an enemy
However,
How are
galaxy.
you gonna?
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, were you done? I don't want to.
Ask your question.
I want to go after this as well.
Spotted an
How do
enemy
you
transport.
know what is being talked about is in fact right when the methods that, according to you, these new communication platforms are revolutionizing how we talk? How do you know that what is right is actually right when these platforms are preventing certain points of view from even being broadcast without striking people down?
What I would say is this. It's really, really important. We failed in the critical thinking of the 90s in education. It fucking failed. People aren't better at critical thinking. It's really important that people learn how to think well about topics. They learn how to read empirical literature.
You're not answering the question.
I am answering the question.
Not really.
The answer to this question is fundamentally, how do you know who's right? We don't. The best guess you can do. The best you can do.
Your answer is
hope.
you don't fucking know, so take a guess. The
Leave
reality is if it's the 90s.
Please,
God.
Rob.
You don't
Please,
want to
Rob.
agree to the
Please,
education.
please let me finish.
Thinking you're so fucking
You're
dumb.
next,
Please,
CTV. Leave her finish.
please
Yeah.
let me finish.
Shut the fuck up!
Thank you.
All right, leave her go. Erudite.
The key is thinking well. That's really all it is. If you want sources for techniques that teach you how to think well about topics, they don't tell you what's the right opinion. They tell you how to think about information. Look at things like Julia Galev. Look at things like fundamental heuristics and fallacies, and make sure you're not doing it all the time, as best as you possibly can, because the reality is, who the fuck knows who's right? Obviously the views I have, I think are true. I could be fucking wrong. However, I exist in a state of fundamentally faith. I'm always trying to have good ideas. I'm always trying to improve on them. I intake good criticisms and I dismiss the bad ones. And I could still be fucking wrong, but I'm doing the best that I possibly can, and I think that that's literally all we can ask of people to do, is try to engage with topics intelligently. And CTV, for you and for my chat, I would just like to say one final thing, and that is, ow!
So in seriousness,
CTV. Let's go to CTV real quick, then we'll go down.
To that. Like
Please
genuine
hurry,
straight up.
because CTV needs to get done.
How do we talk about the effectiveness of masks with COVID back in 2020 and 2021
Got
when
extra
all the
ammunition
social
here.
media platforms instantly banned professionals that work in the space, people that were citing studies that were in fact accurate at the time and are accurate today, but you can't have the conversation because these platforms are not allowing the conversation to even be had.
You're right. There's a problem with this. So the part of it is, what conversations need to we have? Ivermectin, I'm sorry. The RCTs are in. We studied it.
Stick to the subject that I gave you.
Yeah, which is COVID. Ivermectin is fundamental to the conversation.
Mask
with COVID
effectiveness.
Okay.
It was something that was scientifically proven, that
Mhm.
was actively muted and silenced and got people kicked off platforms.
Yes.
Because it was against the science at the time.
The issue is that the science and what the government says isn't always the same thing. It doesn't
The
mean science is
platform.
failing us. Yes.
This
So
isn't-
what do you do? I don't know. I don't know the perfect solution, right?
Well, you can
I
take
don't
the
have
example
it.
of Reddit and
You
then
What I
look at
do,
links.
hold on.
Not from not so erudite when
not
these
the right
platforms, it's a developing pandemic. There's a lot of information coming through. Of course, the platforms aren't going to fucking handle it perfectly. Yes, mistakes were made,
Yes.
certainly.
Yes, absolutely. I would say
So
when
it just
yes,
happens to
they
be that it's
they fucked up with
incorrect
COVID.
in the proper political mindset of shutting down conservatives and people that want to actually try and think critically and actually prevent.
This is the issue. This is the issue. Conservatives don't want to think critically. They just want to engage in as much circle jerking as the leftists. This is the problem. You're all doing the same shit. Nobody's thinking critically. The first person who says, I think critically about things is the motherfucker who isn't, right? It's the same person who says, I'm really honest. They're fucking not, right? The people who say, I want to think critically are people who know literally nothing about like virus and RNA, and then they're commenting about things like Pfizer vaccines and the new fucking, by the way, the new vaccine that included mRNA was brilliant. It was just brilliant. Yes, yes, hold on. The government fucked up. Hold on.
It
Yes.
wasn't the government, it was the platforms. The entire topic we're trying to talk about.
Don't let up.
Of course they fucked up. Chad and I already told you that they fucked up. I'm not pretending that they didn't. The issue is that because they fucked up, conservatives just decided to just come up with a bunch of retarded ideas instead. And that's not fucking better, by the way. Just because we failed to engage in the dialogue doesn't mean that coming up with actual booger-ass interpretations of how vaccines fucking work was a better alternative.
He's right.
All right.
Hey, Rob, I'm assuming at some
CTV.
point I'm going to get my time, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Then I want to ask you a question after that.
All right, but she talked about critically thinking. Just like Antifa's anti-fascist, we got CTV up there. In the name, baby. Have at her.
Keep rolling.
Look.
You've got this.
Conservatives, back when COVID first got started, looked at everything that was being said and understood that masks weren't going to fucking work because common sense, right, is typically how conservatives tend to live their life because they understand the material condition of the world most of the time, right? They understand viruses that can't be seen, you're going to get them, blah, blah, blah. But they also understand that they end up on fucking everything and that unless you are 100% perfect at all times, right? Mask, get your gloves, everything's perfect, everything around you sanitized. That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. But nobody lives in a fucking clean room. I was telling people this back in 2020, right? And we get all these fucking lefties. Oh no, you gotta wear your mask. You gotta wear your mask. Don't fucking do it. It's like you're fucking idiots. You weren't thinking critically about any part of what would the mainstream media was fucking telling you, or the news organizations, or the fucking government for that fucking matter. None of you were. All you were doing was picking up the narrative that the mainstream media was fucking feeding your ass and just pushing it off everybody else. And you didn't give two lines about anybody else's individual liberty.
Oh my god.
You didn't give two lines of a fuck.
I'm going to slip in and answer your question very quickly. Okay, here's the thing. You asked about whether the government should step into like strict speech, something along those lines, right? You already accept that they do that, okay? Lolicon is illegal in the United States. Fraud is not protected speech. Incitement to violence is not protected speech, okay? So there's some misinformation, I believe, that is so egregious that it could easily fall under some form of incitement to violence or some incitement to self-harm or something along those lines. It could easily fall under fraud. So these are things that could be restricted by the government because it fits perfectly alongside pre-existing legislation. Shut the fuck up. It sits alongside pre-existing legislation. It sits alongside pre-existing legislation. It sits alongside pre-existing legislation that's designed to prevent harm. That is why you can't shut up. That is why you can't. That is why you can't engage in fraud. It's why you couldn't upload an image of child abuse images because it causes harm. Speech gets limited when harm is caused. You could apply the same logic to some misinformation.
No, the same logic is that if you treated the online sphere like you do the real world sphere between you and me and you could be sitting here fucking coking and joking, make threats at each other and all the other, and nobody would bat a fucking eye. But because it's on the internet, right? And
yes, because everything's fucking different on the internet. It's actually your booger eater ass who pretends that when you're in a public standpoint that it's fucking different than when you're smoking joints in your friend's garage. You absolute booger dragging moron. Of course. Of course.
If they don't agree with yours, the only way is to shut the fuck up.
Aaron, all right, that's it, CTV. Now let's go.
Okay,
I unfortunately had to mute. Let's go to Prime, who is muted, and then we're going to go to Rachel. and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Was I muted?
Go ahead, Prime. You were. I made it almost through the whole thing. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm the one who got muted.
I'm sorry. How are you muting Prime?
You got muted. It's fine.
It's fine. No, I was just,
Prime, then Rachel, then we're wrapping up. Go for it.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's just, it's amazing. Like, Erudite says it, and then it just like springs forth into reality.
We're still in
It's just, this has been quite an experience. Thank you so much, guessing veteran. I think that
I'm not muted by the way, guys. I'm just turning off my mic because it picks up my breathing noises.
When we're talking about censorship, because like we all have our own like it's so subjective. Like we all have this perspective about like how this group of people that we like is being censored from talking. It happens on the left too. But like the right doesn't understand that. But like on the left, people get censored all the time. But like we want to have good speech rise and bad speech disappear, right? Like it's a thing that people have. Since there's no free speech absolutes, they don't actually exist. Those people don't exist. We can see that on fucking Truth Social, right? You criticize Donald Trump, all of a sudden that's gone. So I think that we all have are experiencing this and all trying to work it out and looking for like a savior to come in and fix it for us. But there is none. It's going to be a messy solution. It's going to be messy. And I actually don't know if there will be a solution. I think maybe at best we like balkanize and have
final solution
of what?
And then Chip leaves when he says it.
I don't have an
Let's go to Rachel. Let's go to Rachel. Last word on this, and then we'll go to closing statements. And
no. Well, I just finished my. I think we're gonna balkanize in terms of our in terms of our platforms that we talk to each other. That might be the case, but a perfect solution doesn't exist on either side.
Go ahead, Rachel. Final word.
So first and foremost, I want to say to CTV and the Turk, fuck you guys for making me side with Prime and Erudite on this whole entire
made you do
panel.
a damn thing. You fucking made a choice.
Shut the
all right. Let her go.
You are both fucking retarded.
You're a grown-ass woman. Accept responsibility for your action.
Okay, I think we're finished. Last word. We almost made it. Go ahead, Rachel.
CTV is fucking retarded. Okay, I don't know about the other guy. He just is towing the natural like I am.
No, you loved me in that same thing, so
Shut
lay
the
it
fuck
out.
up! I'm doing my
No.
closing. You'll get
You
your
called
chance.
me retarded.
All right.
No,
Continue.
I will debate you, and I will crush your ass.
No, you
okay?
called me retarded.
Yes, I will.
Continue.
I will crush your ass, and you won't have a single hope. Okay.
Okay.
But
Let's just finish it out.
Prime and Erudite
You
were
gonna sit on
right
him?
on most of these things, unfortunately. And you guys make the rest of the right look fucking stupid, which pisses me off, which is why I had to start my own fucking channel to elucidate these ideas, right? So, no, the government is not going to come save your ass. The federal government is not going to come save you. Some Team America World Police shit is not going to come save you from everything. You're fucking stupid. CTV is blowing a ton of fucking weed smoke. He's high as a kite. The other guy is down here with his bald ass saying some shit that don't matter. Some shit that like, oh, the police, personal responsibility. And it's like, none of that shit matters. None of it matters. You're so far off from the topic that it's laughable. And I'm just sitting here getting drunk and watching you and laughing and thinking, fuck, the left wing is gonna win because you're all so stupid and you're all so wrong and you're so off the mark as to what is happening and all of these things. So, no.
We're sending the homosexuals to,
Excuse me, it's my closing.
Sorry.
The federal government is not gonna come save you. The state government is not going to come save you. Trump's not going to save you. Kanye West is not going to save you. None of these entities are going to come save you.
This is the best straw man
All I advocate for is family, marriage, motherhood, homeschooling. These are the things that I talk about on my channel. So if you care about that stuff, if you care about actual information, you can come follow me. And it pisses me off when I have to get wasted on bourbon and agree with the leftists because my right wing people are so stupid and so uninformed that I have to agree with the leftists on the panel. It's horrifying, and I'm very upset, and I don't know when I will recover from this. But holy shit, you just made Prime and Erudite look like geniuses because you're so fucking stupid and so uninformed.
All right. Here's what we're gonna do. Here, wait.
Buy my book. See my book here, Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation. Buy my book and read some history, and then go to their channels and perhaps learn some history, and then come back and try to debate because you are making the rest of us look stupid, and I am pissed at you for that shit.
Leave her go.
Go learn your history. Go learn something.
You have some more
go
conspiracy
educate
theories for me?
yourself, and then come back and try to debate. Learn some metaphysics, some
Learn what a
epistemology,
strawman
and
argument
then come back
is
and try to
how to
argue.
not do that in your
Because you're
closing
all
statement.
fucking
Please,
retarded. And
Okay,
fuck you
all right.
for making me side with them, but now Erudite
All right.
and Prime are my new, cohort.
Stop, Rob. I mean, damn.
Okay, that's it. That's the final statement.
Fuck you. Fuck
I'm
you.
drunk,
Fuck
you know.
All right, we're moving on. Thank you, Rachel. Now we'll just do closings. I guess that was her closing as well. So shout out where to find you if you're selling anything. Let's go to Turk. I'd say a minute, but I think you got.
YouTube. Okay, I just started a brand new channel. Rachel Wilson on YouTube. r.wilson@substack.com. Buy my book, The Occult fucking
Feminism.
Some shit
Occult Feminism.
on Amazon. Okay, it's a really good selling book. Go buy it.
Alrighty. Let's go to Turk. We'll give you more in a minute. Feel free at the end to shout yourself out, but if you'd like to respond, feel free.
Rachel, I'm sorry that you're so drunk that you didn't even recognize what actually was being talked about the past hour. The government isn't going to save you. I never said those words in this context of the conversation, and the police isn't being accountable. Where's your head at? You are nowhere near what's actually being talked here. So you keep telling us that we need to learn how to
Leave him go.
and debate better. Freaking sober up, drink some water, and then try and have a real conversation and use your real brain. Come on.
Keep going, Turk. Final statement,
So if this is closing for this topic,
Yeah,
I really want these social media platforms to be more open so that we can actually have conversations where we talk about these types of topics. I think the intro was about the trans topic. I wish we didn't have to walk around on eggshells in order to actually hear other people's ideas out and hear other people's out that we think are completely wrong. I completely agree with Prime. There's some opinions and facts that are more correct than others. But if we are artificially censoring some of those conversations from even beginning, how do we know what is actually a dumb idea and what is actually a less dumb idea? So that's why I think the platforms themselves, not the government patriarch chick, the platforms themselves need to loosen up a little bit. I think we all need to kind of just chill out and actually try to have real conversations about topics that are important for us.
Enemy soldier down.
All right, do you want to shout out your channel or anything?
Yeah, so I'm the Turk. I don't stream too often on Twitch anymore. Doing more on the YouTube, doing science and tech. If you like the Steam Deck, I tested Unreal Engine 5 on there. It's super slow. It's very bad performance, but it looks really good. So if you like science and tech, computers, PC hardware, all that, youtube.com/@theturk.
All right, thanks so much. By the way, special thanks to the Turk it being a last-minute replacement. So I do really appreciate that. Let's just go in reverse order. So let's go up to Prime Case. Go ahead, Prime. Final thoughts on this topic, and then feel free to shout your channel out so people know where to find you.
Yeah, I think I've already said all my thoughts. But I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. A shout out to Rob for doing a good job moderating. Moderating is a lot tougher than people think it is. And so, shout out to you, buddy. And I've enjoyed having, I have all these, except for Rachel, I had all these people on my platform previously, and I've enjoyed talking to them at some point in time in the past. The Turk even as well. Turk and I have had really great conversations. So I'm glad we could come together and do this. This is a lot of fun. come visit me at twitch.tv or youtube.com/primekai, PRIMECAYES. If you like anything I have to say, I do this type of stuff, right, in terms of debate panels, and I give my opinion often. So if you want to come down and you can be a part of it too, because we have open panels, right? So come on through. We'd love to have you. And yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you. And like I said, one of my first, I think my first panel I ever did was Prime. I always called you Prime K's, by the way. So sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Everyone does. It's fine.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go up to Erudite. Final thoughts on this topic, and then shout out your channel and everything.
I feel like the fact that us lefties could cause a conservative civil war feels like a good enough conclusion. I'll say this first, Rachel. My chat loves drunk Rachel, so well done. It takes you being drunk, but then you can finally realize what base Prime Kai's is. So thank you for that. Who the fuck knows what this debate is about? I don't know. Maybe Chet can tell you. I think I'm doing this other one at the time. So thanks for having me, Rob. I appreciate you hosting. Appreciate you having me on, and it was nice to meet
Just saw it.
met before, and those of you who have met me before,
Frag out! Enemy engineers frag out!
Thanks so much for being here. All right, let's go up to CTV. Final thoughts on this topic, and then where can people find you?
No thoughts on this topic. What even is this topic anymore? Big tech? I don't know.
No. Oh, CTV, I was saying.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's all right. CTV, can you hear me? Final thoughts on this topic, and then shout yourself out. Go ahead.
Yeah, so to kind of bring it back to the entirety of the conversation, one of the reasons why critical thinking skills left the schools had to do directly with the creation of the Federal Department of Education, right? And then they started dictating what it is that had to be taught from the top down, et cetera, et cetera. And then you lead this to a generation that thought that they had to get a participation trophy just for playing a fucking sport, right? So then what we ended up doing is raising a whole generation of baby back bitches, right? That don't know how to actually compete, that don't know how to actually hear other people's ideas, and don't actually know how to understand that any issue that you're talking about is going to be a spider web of other things that end up interacting with one thing regardless of what it is, right? So the left wants to try to paint it like, oh, the conservatives don't understand any of this. It's like, no, we understand it, and then we also understand that what the mitigating risks that you have to try to take care of, and then what your concerns are over here, and what it is that you actually have power or control over. So with regard to the advertisers, they really do, as Chud said, they do bring in the dollars, and that is a concern for somebody that's trying to have their entire income coming in by way of that. That's why I would always encourage people to not only, if you're going to be streaming, to have some other source of revenue, right? Be it merchandise, be it anything, right? Or hell, just fucking working a side job, have a little side hustle. Do something that way you don't have to compromise so much of your integrity and your sense of self, and you get to be who you are and still be able to make your way through the online space that is obviously being fucking controlled by a bunch of people that don't know how to accept criticism. And you can find me, you know what? I just recreated the Twitter, so if any of y'all want to, you can go follow me on Twitter, original_CTV.
All right, thanks so much for being here.
I'm the Opal.
Great to see you again. Chud wants to know if you're going to post any Pride flags.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the reality of that situation is that, one, everybody wanted to get on a tizzy about it. It's like, okay. Two, I'm not even the one that made the thing. American Nacho gave it to me. I saw it. I went, oh yeah.
You're outing him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened, right? So then after that, everybody wanted to get in a tizzy, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And then explaining how it is just one flag, turned, rotated, right? And then you create the image. That's what's funny. Versus the other ones that they want to point out where they say, oh, well, it's like, 13 flags end to end, but then you have to extend it in the middle in order to actually make the image, which doesn't make it concentric, right?
So fuck up and wrap it up.
It's drunk girl from the bottom, right? Got to hear from her.
Okay, listen,
right?
it's my turn. So let me fucking say this.
Final topic, go for it, man.
Enough of okay, cut that out of the fucking edit. Enough has been said. You know where to find me. However, I just want to commend Rob Knorr for an absolutely fantastic performance as a moderator. And I've noticed a great disservice and a great injustice that has happened, and I therefore must call someone out. Destiny, you sit in your ivory tower of aluminum and spacecraft, cowering away from the intellectual powerhouse that is Rob Knorr, terrified to debate this man. Where are you, Destiny? Where the fuck are you?
Well, after he lost to CTV...
Are you too afraid to face Rob Knorr in the ring of intellectual justice? Sounds like you are. Get your fucking balls out if you're really a man and debate Rob Knorr. Justice for Rob. Justice for Rob. Justice for Rob. Let's go.
Am I allowed to do this, or is that appropriating something? I don't know, but yeah.
Wakanda forever.
Yeah. Well, I do want to just real quick. I'll say this. I'm going to do an after show. People are welcome to stick around if they want, but I understand it's Friday night. People probably have lives, unless you're in UK or whatever. What is it?
I'm
Friday
just gonna
morning.
jerk off, but, yeah.
I don't know. Some. Yeah. Well, that's important too, I guess, to some people. I do want to say thank you to everyone who's here. I hope that people. I don't mind the insults and shit. I hope other people don't as well. I don't think anyone should go away feeling like really down on themselves except me. But other than that, I thought it was fun, so I enjoyed it. I want to give a special shout out to John Burke. Sorry he couldn't be here tonight, and to Aftershock, who did all the hard work of producing, which is the least fun and hardest work. So if you ever need help setting people up, communicating with people to set up a panel, consider reaching out to Aftershock. And thank you so much. I hope you would all be willing to come back again. I'm going to go to the restroom. I'm going to come back, and if people want to stick around, I'm going to stick around till midnight, and we can talk about further on these topics or others. But I'm going to head out right now. I'm still streaming, so don't say anything stupid while I'm in the restroom. But thank you all if you all leave. Thanks so much.
So let's talk about the N-words.
I was about to say, okay, CTV, go, 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 go!
CTV, go! Tell us all about your based, thoughts on stuff.
Well, 22 days ago, I almost died. So I've got a different perspective on life. So
Is it
all of
because
the, like during the course of the debate, whenever people are, let's just say, well, there's no point now. There's no point.
That's pretty much what I expected. So anybody who has a prefrontal cortex intact, go ahead.
Yeah, what I did is I stopped and I considered who it was that I was talking to and whether or not I was going to have an actual impact, and I said, fuck it. There's no point.
CTV, I was able to determine during this conversation, my chat and I decided that I am a opal firewolf, so I feel like that's something you can remember. Are you also an opal firewolf?
No.
Yeah. What are you? Stone and elemental.
I know this. CTV with his wolf pack, I was an honorary member. I was a bear, which,
Sure.
I didn't
still are the bear.
realize a hairy gay man for a long time, but I'm happily married. I'm not a hairy gay man, but I am a big fat hairy guy. So
We've lost who's the better drunken panelist, me or Rachel?
Oh, that's a good question. We've had Turk on our panel before.
Yeah, it's the only way y'all can handle me.
I'd give it to you, Turk. You're quite entertaining, drunk or sober. So.
No, I will remind, if people want to leave, that's fine. I got a question for Chud. You finally willing to admit right-wingers were censored more?
Okay, so listen, I saw you popping up about this, okay? So
good at
the original topic of the conversation that we were supposed to have was, are conservatives being oppressed on social media or something like that? Then when we had the conversation, I think we spoke more about like whether conservatives are censored more rather than oppressed. Because obviously you could be censored, but it can be justified. I'm sure you'd agree. Uploading child pornography, you get banned. That's not being oppressed, right? But you are being censored. So I think that the reality is, we don't know the figures exactly of like who is being censored more to say with certainty. I guess is the position I still land on.
Well, sure we do.
Unless
I mean, you admitted you didn't read the Twitter post, so we see. And when I went through in that debate, there were three things. Right? When I went through in that debate, there were three areas.
Wait, I just need to know. What's your stone elemental? I mean, I know you're a bear, but are you like an earth jade bear?
No, you know what I am? I'm not like into weird astrology or
It's not astrology. You just get to pick it. It's not astrology. You just get to pick it.
I get
He's
to
a
pick what I
normal
want.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'd be someone, I don't know, that doesn't give a shit about it. I guess if I was put on the spot, I would say whatever seemed the most impressive to people. If everyone else could pick what their pronouns are, I might as well pick my stone.
So you're a boring bear is what you're telling me.
Sounds great. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. What I was saying in that debate was there was 3 areas of conservative censorship or repression, whatever you want to say. There were the big conservative streamers, or big conservative people like Trump or politicians or huge streamers. Then there were the average people. So the average conservative more likely to be censored than the average liberal. The third was the ideas of topics that were allowed to censor or allowed to talk about and censor. So there are topics that conservatives want to talk about surrounding COVID, surrounding elections and stuff like that are more censored. And the Twitter files have definitively showed in all 3 of those that it's not even close. And not only, and this is what was so frustrating to me in this debate, it's at the behest of the government. Like, the government is literally stepping in and saying, it's not just conservatives, by the way, but it's predominantly conservatives. For example, the government is greenlighting psyops of people that are pretending, government agents that are pretending to be Russians or Chinese or Koreans, so that they can go on there. Like, this is all proof, right? And I was just
the word literally is doing a lot of work there. Okay, you are working from a position of more knowledge than me. I'll just say that straight away because you've read all the Twitter files. And I'll be honest.
So that's always the case.
I'll be honest. After the first 4 or 5.
I got a question concerning the Twitter files. Had these files been leaked under Jack, would that have been worthy of being censored? That goes to Eurodite.
Wait, I'm sorry. I was just trying to troll about rock types and elemental types, and you're trying to ask me questions about fucking Twitter files? I clearly, I am not operating, directed to chat, I'm clearly not operating on the same playing field as the rest of you.
That's fine.
Okay.
So basically, we're talking about the Twitter files and how there's argument between conservatives being censored more than
Oh, I would say
people
conservatives are
left of censor.
definitely censored more
That's
than...
not what I'm asking you. Had these
here's-
Twitter files, let me finish the question. Had the Twitter files been released under Jack's tenure as CEO, would that have been grounds of being censored due to the apparatus that was behind Twitter at the time? Given that it's true.
You're asking would Jack have censored the Twitter files?
Would Jack himself have censored the Twitter files? Well, no, by himself. Would he like, would all of the external pressures that was
Twitter,
elucidated in the
of
Twitter
Jack
files? Yes.
have censored it?
Have censored it himself. Probably because it's internal network stuff. I don't know if that necessarily speaks directly to your point, though, of like, would he have kowtowed because of like external pressures? I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know if... I wish Twitter files was more than it was. I have like enough of an anti-establishment piece to me that I
Have you read it?
Yes, I have.
But you don't think it's a big...
Really quick, just to get rid of me, I want to tell you that I don't give a shit about the rest of this conversation, and thank you so much for having me, and I was very honored to be here, and thank you all, and I will be leaving now, and thank you so much,
Where'd
and
your
have a
book go?
great
See you, Rachel.
conversation. Bye!
It's not there anymore.
Bye.
See you later. Bye bye. Have a good one.
Remember the short stroke.
I just want to address something. I know we're trying to get into the Twitter files up. I just want to say, here's the thing, right? The problem you've got is there wasn't true transparency with the Twitter files. You had journalists which lean a certain direction that reported it with their bias to the point where they were even saying things that weren't fully reflective of the screenshots that you could see yourself. So I think full transparency would have been much like a kind of WikiLeaks situation where you redact what you need to protect people's identities if necessary, but you release it all and then everyone gets a look. Right-wing people look, left-wing people look. That's what true transparency looks like. And the truth is somewhere in the middle.
That's absurd, right? Like, because think about it. It's like they speak out of both sides of their mouth. Because on one hand, when these things are released, all of a sudden you hear left-wing apparatchik people saying, "Oh my God, they're putting Gil Roth's life in danger. They're putting Vijay Agadi's life in danger. They're putting Jack Dorsey's." All of these internal communications. So many of them aren't about things that are important to censorship or geopolitics.
I agree that the core leaks don't put your Roth's life in danger. What does put your life in danger is right-wingers going off a million miles an hour in one direction and trying to make out like he's some fucking groomer pedo that doesn't give a shit about child pornography on the platform. That's
bullshit.
That absolutely. They were digging up.
You don't hold that same standard to other things. Why do we only talk about incitements to violence when it comes to the right? For example, I could look at right-winger after right-winger that's been beat our police officers have been attacked, etc., because our country is systemically racist, because people like Maxine Waters say that we need justice and need to improve this stuff in the street, but we never say, oh, well, then anyone who said Black Lives Matter incited violence against white.
What you're doing is you're taking all these positions that you think I hold and going boom, 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 boom. I might actually agree with you on some of this stuff, right? But you seem unwilling to call out and want to pivot off and not willing to call out the right, essentially putting a pedo jacket on this guy and saying, this Yoel Roth guy's a pedo. Do you think Yoel Roth is a pedophile?
No. Am I the right? Am I part of it?
Yeah, you're part of the right wing, and I'm presenting to you.
The majority of people on the right wing. I think it was a fringe amount of people that said this is proof that he's a pedo. There might have been those fringe people. They're insane fringe left people. I would never say that they're responsible for incitement to death. What we do know from what you'll wonder is true that there was active pedophilia on Twitter. Still is, by the way. And that people at Twitter didn't seem to take it that serious. I don't think that means for pedos. I think it's probably a complicated job and it's tough to censor everything of that level, but I don't think they had much of an interest. Nonetheless, you should be allowed to say that without being accused of direct violence. But the point I'm trying to make, the greater point here is, right, these efforts of censorship, right, like the idea that we need to release every file, well, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you release every file, people will say 95% of these internal Twitter communications have nothing to do with censorship and stuff, so why are you releasing them? Instead, what happens is a bunch of formerly I would still say left-wing journalists were given this because the right-wing media proved, just like they're proving with the Project Veritas story, they don't give a shit. They're part of the censorship. They want this censorship to occur. So you give it to these people, real quick, let me finish, and then they comment, but they also link to the direct documents. So what about the direct emails that they've linked is inaccurate?
Okay, so here's the thing. Excuse me. The problem that you've got is you're pivoting off again to all these different points. And the thing is, we've probably got some agreement somewhere on some of this stuff, okay? Now, the issue that I've got in terms of you saying about the emails that are listed there and you can read it, yeah, sometimes the reporting in the tweets actually disregarded what was said in the communication. So there's other instances where things could be misconstrued. Okay, I've not looked at this for a little. There was I can't remember. There's one example where I think it was talking about the banning of libs of TikTok. And they suggested that the way that Twitter dealt with libs of TikTok was unreasonable in their reporting on it. But if you actually looked and read, Twitter went out of its way to try and ensure that libs of TikTok stayed on the platform, despite them having, certain violations of TOS that they engaged in. And I think that one common trend that you saw in the Twitter files was not as it was presented, that there was this vociferous desire to cancel, delete, get rid of the cancel right-wingers. There was a concerted effort to actually try and keep right-wingers on, in spite of them, breaking rules.
There was also a concerted effort by the journalists to also report accurately, saying, hey, there's this rumor that the FBI actually directed these people to do certain things. This is earlier on in the Twitter files. But if you go a couple weeks later, you don't actually see the direct in the documents that are being said, so we can't accurately state at this time that the FBI directed them to actually do that thing. The journalists did a pretty decent job of trying to remain neutral throughout the thing. Your one instance doesn't necessarily reflect
So I agree that there was a point where they said that, and that was commendable and that was good. However, the format with which it was released lended itself to people picking out and quote tweeting specific parts of it to spin a narrative of their own. I think,
the format was bad.
Yeah, sure. And I think that was by design, because the purpose of what happened with the Twitter files wasn't a purpose to find truth and transparency. It was Elon Musk, releasing things to selective people in order to perpetuate a narrative to prop up his purchase of Twitter and, feed red meat to the right wingers. Look, you were right about all of this stuff. Look at this, look at this, look at this.
Well, we were right about all of it. When it mattered, you weren't right, and we were, right? And that's what struck me in listening to this second debate topic. This is what struck me. It's convenient to hear lefties say, well, shucks, all the corporations are pro-lefty, the government's forcing censorship into pro-left. Oh, well, what can we really do? Now, fuck all of that, right? Like, what we see is, when I ask the question specifically, should the government enact any law restricting the free speech? That's directly from the First Amendment. And the idea that pedophilia and stuff like that, well, that doesn't apply because those are crimes outside. We're talking about the idea of censoring speech because you disagree with people politically.
Those are still things that the state have determined that is illegal. They've decided that stuff is illegal. Fraud, okay, but the point is, fraud, forget the child pornography thing. Fraud is not protected by the First Amendment, correct?
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So they've decided that fraud
Let me heal
has
you.
been sectioned off where you can't commit
Ammunition here.
fraud even though you've got First Amendment protections. Okay?
Cool.
So there are examples where the state put in place restrictions and you're saying, well, that's the legal side. Well, the state has created that law in the first place and determined that that's an exception. Right?
Okay, so tell me what the fraud is. So then it is, okay, well, they've defined fraud as such as this. Saying that the virus came from a lab in Wuhan. That was defined as fraud and was censored then by the government.
Was that censored by the government? I'm
Yes.
talking the misinformation that I think you
Governmental
could.
agencies were asking Twitter and flagging tweets on or posts on Facebook. These are misinformation and need to be removed.
Okay.
You're seeing about the lefties. Go ahead, and then
Okay.
I'll
What I was going to say is it depends. I mean, I'd need to see exactly what we're referring to. Okay, this sounds like something that was looked at maybe like the Twitter leak 9, 10, 11. Like I say, the format was terrible because there's some I haven't read because they come out like weeks after the initial drop came. So I'm happy to look at that and engage with that. I think that assuming what you're saying is true, that the government is saying what if there's a tweet saying it came from a Wuhan virus, that Twitter has to remove it. Because I'm not sure if they're saying you must remove this. I think they're flagging it as a potential issue in Twitter and then making a decision about whether or not they remove it.
Do you guys have a source for this?
Well, that's very
Can you
different to a
guys-
government
Yeah, but
dictating
that's
you've got to
very
remove
different.
something, isn't it?
Can you guys cite it?
I'll find it
Because-
and let me explain.
Yeah.
Sure, I will. It's not different. I'll explain why. Because you could even see when it came to Twitter files just dropped today, right? Like 15. And what it was all about was Hamilton 68. You remember when Devin Nunes released this memo and all of the mainstream outlets were like, everyone's saying release the memo. They're Russian bots. This organization, Hamilton 68, well, it turns out Hamilton 68 had John Podesta in it, former heads of the NSA, CIA, and they knew that it was bullshit. But they're continually communicating with Twitter like, hey, all these Russian bots. So what these communications showed was actually Twitter being more reasonable. That's like, what the fuck? These people are full of shit. They're spreading this bullshit that it's Russian bots. They aren't Russians and they're not bots. The reason that I'm saying that it's not different, because what you're basically saying is, well, hey, the government could reach out and say, we have a problem with this, and they could choose themselves. That's not what was happening. And you know that because your argument when it came to marketing was, well, Twitter wants to be libertarian. They want to be free speech, but they want that ad dollar. Well, the same's true. They don't want to be regulated by the government. At the same time that these institutions were, like the FBI and the DHS, were reaching out to Twitter saying, we want you to ban certain arguments, we want you to ban certain people, the Democrats on the Hill were calling these places, Zuckerberg, Dorsey, etc., in front of them saying, we want you to censor more or we'll regulate you. You have to get disinformation out. So the carrot and stick
There's
is...
also
I'm
pressure
sorry.
on the other
You
side
have-
too. There's also
You also have to
Sorry, go
provide
on.
sources for all of this, because I think that,
Like what?
Wait, the Twitter files source for this. If you're saying that the Twitter files showed that they were actively trying to dismiss Wuhan claims, I just need to see the source at this point because, I think Chad has a really good point here. The Twitter files failed most abysmally in the release format. At least with WikiLeaks, everything was cohesive, everything was together, everything was for the most part holistic. You could just fucking Google shit and find it. In the case of Twitter files, you Google things like Twitter files Wuhan lab, you don't find anything. So I'm willing to grant you.
Interesting. That's very interesting. For example, if you Twitter file Veritas Pfizer, you also don't find anything. It's almost like, now hear me out, this is crazy. It's almost like Google's algorithm, the most used algorithm, is designed to manipulate and keep these stories from coming out.
Yeah,
It's
but
almost
even
like
if you
that.
use things like DuckDuckGo and Bing, I still aren't finding these things. Do you think that I'm like a rudimentary baby searcher? Of course I use things like DuckDuckGo.
You read all the Twitter files.
No,
Right,
I
right, right,
haven't.
right.
I already told you that I haven't. I'm asking you to cite your source.
I will cite my source.
Okay.
I will get them.
Rob, to answer your question, right, I agree that big tech companies are averse to regulation, but there's two sides to that coin. There's the Democrats and there's the Republicans, okay? So on the one side, they're going to be concerned about Democrats implementing potentially more censorious policies, that's true, but also you've got Republicans that were talking about removing Section 230, which would strip away the ability to protect Twitter from legislation for stuff that's posted on there by other users. So, it's two sides of the same coin.
No,
So
it's not.
They've got.
It's not.
No,
Let me give you an
because
example.
they've got to try and fucking drive that middle line where they're avoiding
that's
regulation
bullshit.
from either side or deregulation, which is going to fuck them up further. So there's two sides to that coin. Which
let me answer that. Let me answer that. Give me a second, right? So one side saying we don't think you should censor people for political ideas. And if you do, we're no longer going to give you Section 230 protections. And the other side saying, we think you have to censor our political opponents. And if you don't, we'll end Section 230. That'd be like,
you're totally
let me finish. I give you a chance. Let me finish.
Absolute shit. Who is saying you need to censor political opponents? That isn't what was said at all.
That is exactly what they're saying. And that would be like saying that, you had one group that said, we are going to shut down your license to operate your diner if you don't serve black people. And the other side saying, we're going to shut down your business license if you do serve black people. See the difference? What are you talking about? You don't see evidence that they suggest. Maybe you haven't read the Twitter files, and yet you're telling me that you honestly don't think that they talked about censoring political opponents? That's what your argument is.
Because I know that you're full of shit, Rob. Okay? I know you're
Well,
full of shit
look,
because
let's
you
find the
misrepresent it. You're doing the conservative thing where you misrepresent. I think there's an interesting conversation to be had about the role that government should or shouldn't have in this sort of censorship. What role should NGOs play who have got a lot of power to say, well, I think this is interesting stuff, but you go down this conservative fucking sides cut line of Democrats bad, Republicans good, and you fail to see the wood for the trees, that there's much greater issues at play here. Advertising absolutely slots into this as well, okay? But I think you throw all that out because you have got your partisan talking points, your NPC talking points that you want to push. This is what you always do in every fucking debate.
Again, it's just a convenient way. It was like Erudite said earlier. You just throw these terms out like conspiracy theorists or talking points, and you ignore what's actually being shown and what's being proved. Now, I was right about conservatives being censored, but maybe I'm wrong. So here's what we'll do. Here's what we'll do.
That's just it, though. I was right about dismissing you, and I'm not dismissing you, but I'm still asking you for sources, and I'm not finding it. I'm currently I'm going through everything on the Twitter files right now. I looked it up on my own. I'm not seeing anything about Wuhan. You're willing to give it to me. I'm open to reading it. The issue is that here's my biggest criticism for conservatives, if I can offer it kindly. Your guys' criticisms and concerns about progressivism is based. A lot of the slippery slopes you guys outlined were fucking true. The problem is that the conclusions to your criticisms are always fucking wild. They're so fucking out of ledge, it's insane. And the problem is that your criticisms often get lost in the conclusions that you guys make, and it's a problem. I don't know how to fucking reconcile with it. You guys are right.
I will respond.
Apache helicopter gender is happening. Okay, it's happening.
I will respond both you and Chuck. Okay. I'll respond both you. One, I will send you the Twitter files that are relevant. What we do know is, we know the Twitter files were saying that in 2020, the things that social media was censoring, including things that were about the origins of COVID, were being directed by people in the FBI and DHS. I will find those emails to show that to you. But in general, I will say you are actually the most harmful type of person that actually is doing the most to actually cheer for this government involvement and censorship into these ideas, when it's clearly being done by the government, not because they're really concerned about disinformation, but because they're concerned about consolidating power. And the reason that you're the worst type of person for that is because what you do is you try to appear reasonable, and you try to say like, oh, you're right, sometimes the government gets out of hand. But when the evidence shows that it's going in one direction, you want to sort of do this like, well, both sides do it, and you're right, when it comes to government power, sometimes it can get out of hand. But what you're trying to do is ignore the fact that this government going abusive was going almost entirely in one direction. It really was.
Now, you just gave me the... Hold on. Let me just respond before you keep going. First of all, you gave me the greatest moderate compliment, okay? The left is always criticizing me on both sides, and it's amazing that the right is not giving me the same criticism. It means I'm on the right path, okay? Because you're right. No, hold on. You're right. Chad and I are the most dangerous to your cause because I want fucking evidence before I make certain claims. Hold on. Let me just finish, and then I'll read your TMs. I am the most dangerous to your cause because I do want evidence. I am not going to make crazy conclusions, and both of your sides fear moderates because of this premise, because we're not willing to just side with you for whatever reason. And you know that the winning side, yes, you know that the winning side is the side that the centrist follows them on, because the centrist typically levies their position until they have evidence. So of course I want evidence. Okay. Yes.
You're not asking.
You guys can at least bond over your hate of centrism.
Let me respond. Like, you want evidence because you're unwilling to do research for yourself. So the
that's
Twitter files
not
exist
true.
out there, and you haven't.
That's not true. Hold on.
Hold on. I give you a chance. I sit here quietly while you talk. Now you'll sit here quietly while I talk. Now the enlightened centrist that's so concerned about government overreach just didn't find it amongst ourselves to be able to find the time when these files have caught out. Now I'm sure though, if we have George Bush or Donald Trump that that was being accused of this sort of stuff. Somehow the enlightened centrist would have found the time. It's just like she's not an MSNBC or CNN viewer.
Yes,
she's an
poor
ABC
you,
and NBC
poor
viewer.
you
When
that
she
I
asks-
couldn't
when
dedicate my precious time to your specific issue.
When she asks, she makes it sound like, well, I want evidence before I can provide all the evidence. The evidence is there. She chose not to search for it until it's brought up how her double standard that she exhibits in some sort of conversation. Then she's demanding I provide it on stuff.
In the area.
Right. Well,
I literally just looked it up. I just
started
started reading it. The idea that I need to attend to every one of your guys' fucking crazy ass shit is insane. Do you want to know why I haven't been busy looking up the Twitter files constantly? Because I've been reading
you don't
things.
give a shit.
No, because I've been reading and investigating a million other fucking topics that matter. For example, like feminist theory. I've been looking into things
So
like
when Rob said you don't give a shit, that's accurate.
No, it's not accurate at all. The idea that because I don't know
if
one
you did, you would've
specific
already looked at
topic,
it, right?
no, not at all. That's such a
I'll be honest,
moronic
I didn't
claim.
give a shit. I
The
didn't look at
the idea that I would just know everything about everything to be the enlightened centrist is fucking retarded. The fact of the matter
one said
is,
that.
you did. You said, "Oh, you're such an enlightenist theorist." You didn't. You were so enlightened that you didn't even bother getting evidence. Hold the fuck on. I just said until the evidence is presented to me, I won't weigh in. And I asked you this entire fucking conversation to send me evidence. Now, if you provide me evidence with, for example, the fact that they were shutting down certain conversations, I will weigh in necessarily. But the idea that I just have to be tapped into all information at all time to be the perfect centrist is fucking moronic. What I'm telling to you right now is the centrist position is to weigh evidence before conclusion. That's the centrist position, which is why you're afraid of it. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Did I tell you that the Twitter files was wrong? Did I tell you that? No. I told you provide me the evidence because I'm unclear about it at this point, which, by the way, is the most base position to have. Imagine being a conservative and saying for the
Give it your all.
spotted. Cover me, reloading.
I can repair
Spotted a
that.
hostile medic.
Got him.
Got him. Enemy medic spotted. Frag out! Visual on a hostile Sunder.
Ammunition here.
I can heal you.
Frag out!
Frag out! I'll get you fixed up. Spotted a hostile medic. Look, medic here, I'll patch you up. Enemy max.
Time to close the deal.
Enemy soldier down.
Ammunition here.
Enemy center.
Enemy spotted.
Enemy infiltrators spotted.
Visual on hostile engineer.
I'll get you fixed up.
Enemy soldier down.
I can heal extra ammunition. I can repair that. I'm an engineer. I'll repair you.
Give it your all.
I can repair that.
I'm an engineer. I'll repair you. I'll repair you. I'll start
I'm an engineer.
repairing.
I'll repair you.
I can repair that. Heal you. Frag out! Got him. Frag out!
Let me heal you.
I'm an engineer. I'll repair you. Take some ammunition, soldier down. I can heal you. Medic here. I'll patch you up.
Take some ammunition.
Take some ammunition. Medic here. Patch you up. Enemy light assault.
Medic here. I'll patch you up. Enemy soldier down.
I've got ammo for you here. Lightning spotted. Fixed up. Start repairs. I'll get you fixed up. I can heal you.
I'm an engineer. I'll repair you. I'll get you fixed up.
Enemy light assault. In there. Hostile light assault group. Enemy soldier down.
Come on, we're losing this.
I'll get you fixed up.
Republic has taken the facility.